Good morning, everyone. Dr. Chief here, professional problem solver, coming to you live for another episode of the Overcomers. And today we have very exciting guest, a guest that is going to bring up issues that a lot of people ignore, a lot of people oversee, and a lot of people underestimate. But those issues are probably the most critical and most important issues of society today. My friend Daniel is a co-founder of Rescue One Global, along with his wonderful wife, Lacy Tolar. He studied pastoral studies at Tennessee Temple University, has 20 plus years of experience in both service industry, management, and serving and leading as a volunteer in humanitarian church and youth development ministries. In 2008, he led his family to sell everything they had to move to Thailand as missionaries to live, serve, and lead with a team of Thai nationals in multiple service and leadership capacities. During their time in Thailand, he and Lacy discovered the need to combat human trafficking, provide extensive preventative measures for the vulnerable, and establish creative rescue solutions to victims on a global scale. Daniel serves as Rescue One Global's Chief Executive Officer. I was fortunate enough to be connected to Daniel a few years back through my good friend Glenn Lundy. We did something called Live-a-thon, and about 25 of us did 1 hour of Facebook Live to help their organization generate some money, because a lot of these organizations are funded by people, and the government doesn't really help too much, as you have learned from your experience with movies like Sound of Freedom. So Daniel and his wonderful wife Lacy are two of those amazing angels and generals and great queens that represent the kingdom in such a worthy manner. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my great friend Daniel on the stage and let you hear directly from him. Welcome, Daniel.
Hey, it's great to be here with you.
Thank you so much for accepting my invite. It's very exciting to have you on the great show, The Overcomers. By tradition, we start with a question. We dig deep in your past. And I believe that sometimes amazing blessings are passed through generations, and
Mm,
curses are also passed through generations.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
we are curious about your lineage. Like, who is your grandfather and grandmother from your father's side, and your grandfather and grandmother from your mother's side? And what are some amazing lessons and warnings you've extracted from the four grandparents, and then lead us into who are your grandparents, who are your parents, your mom and your dad, and what are some warnings and lessons you learned from them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my grandparents on my dad's side, I didn't know my biological grandmother. She passed away when my dad was 12. And there's some lessons I learned through that from my dad that when life does cause chaos, that it's not the end of life. And my dad grew up from the time he was 12 until my grandmother passed away about 12 years ago, actually. And he learned to love in adversity, and which was one of the greatest things that he could teach me as a young child. And my grandmother was a huge servant. She loved her kids, even though they weren't her biological kids. So when she married my grandfather, it was my dad, his brother, and then his sister. And through the process of them getting married, they ended up taking in two of his cousins because they didn't have a mom to take care of them. So service was the biggest thing that we learned through my grandmother and my grandfather. And then also love unconditionally,
Mm,
because you never know what what love, because love covers a multitude of sins, right? You never know what love is going to break through in someone's life. And so I would say that would be the first two things that I learned from my grandmother, who technically is not my biological grandmother. My grandfather was a hard worker. He was from Southern Alabama, uh, drove a truck until he retired. And then I remember as really, really young, 4, 5, 6 years old, and we'd go visit for Christmas. We lived in Atlanta. They lived in North Carolina. He would leave and go to work in the morning. And he probably he was in his 70s even then. He was a hard worker. And he talked about how it's life is not about just receiving. Life is not about sitting around and watching TV and watching life go by. It's about doing something. And so after he retired from being a truck driver, he became a deputy sheriff, and he served in the prison as a guard, but also he served at the courts with the judges there. And so he would serve judges, but he would also serve people who were criminals. And he expressed the love of Christ to them as well, even in their difficult state. And he talked often about how he engaged in life with people who, in all accounts, didn't deserve grace and mercy, but he was a very gracious and merciful man. And so, hardworking, grace and mercy. And again, that's all driven by love. My mom's side, my great grandmother or my grandmother she's half Cherokee Indian, and she had the best stories of what it was like to overcome adversity. She, when they grew up, there was a lot of, I would say, prejudice.
Mhm.
She married a very not a religious, but a very my grandfather, Papa Rogers, he is a man of very little words. He's Irish. I mean, he is 100% Irish, and he makes it known when he does speak, whether he approves or disapproves. And so I say the biggest thing I learned from my Papa Rogers was speak your mind, but speak it with tact. Don't be a jerk about it.
Hmm.
Uh, be loving, be direct, but sometimes you do have to express the gusto of the reality. Things are urgent. Everything in life is urgent, and so he taught me that. My grandmother, uh, who was half Cherokee, half Irish, actually, she talked a lot about uh, people never really express who they are on the inside. You got to dig it out of them. And so I would say from them, I learned how to really empathize with people and get to the heart of the matter of individuals. Now, for my parents, both of them are believers from an early age. And again, I would say my dad, he even though he was an alcoholic, before I was born. He said the day that I was born, that was when he became a real man, because he already had two daughters, my two older sisters, but he said that something changed when he had a son, that he knew he had to live up to, um, be a real man and not forget the past and not forget the trauma and not forget the things that you experience. And so, from my dad, I would say, um, becoming a man, uh, a holy man, a righteous man, was something that I wanted to pursue. So I remember that even from an early age. And uh, for me, it's really honoring that my dad would say, I didn't know what it was like to be a man until I had a son.
Mm.
And when I had a son, it changed my whole perspective, because now I had somebody who I had to live up to be honorable so that he could look up to me. And then, it was good for my brother and I, because I have a younger brother who's about 6.5 years younger than me. And um, my dad he was a different man from the time my two older sisters, and then the time he had his two sons. And so my dad was honorable, honest, and very sacrificial all of his life. He made lots of good money, and he gave it to
Mm.
his kids. And we didn't live extravagantly, but we didn't have a need. He always took care of us. So serving your family, taking care of your family, providing for your family at your own cost, I would say from my dad, I learned that a lot. Very hard worker again. He had to have learned that from the farms of Alabama and even South Carolina before they moved to North Carolina. My mom, she is uh, probably because of my grandfather, her dad, learned to just speak your mind. And uh, she just lets you have it, right? And there's no nothing varnished, nothing hidden, nothing fake about it. If she thinks it, she's going to tell it to you. So I've learned between my grandfather and my dad on my dad's side, and then my mom, you've got to learn to speak the truth. You can't hide from it. Uh, she doesn't always do it with tact, and so I've watched how not doing it tactful does cause other problems because then now you have dishonored somebody. And so over the years, I've learned. Of course, I haven't always done it right, but learning to speak the truth in love with tact. And when you don't do it tactfully, you got to be a man of honor and respect those individuals and go back to them and apologize. Whether the truth is right or wrong, it doesn't matter. My wife's dad says you can tell the truth, but if you deliver it on a pile of crap, all people see is the crap. And so you've got to learn to make sure that you deliver the truth in love, honesty, but in love. And so I would say um, that's what I've learned from my grandparents and my parents. Love, serve, be honest, and provide for those who are around you. Those are probably the biggest lessons I've learned.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Do you remember your first conscious moment when you first realized that you're alive? Your first memory.
Um, I would say in Atlanta when I was probably 3 or 4, because now I know what life is like. We had a dog that was in the backyard, and it was on a leash. And at the back of the backyard, we had a cliff that went straight down. And uh, this is going to be somewhat of a morbid memory. Um, that dog ran uh, off the leash and then off the cliff somehow, and actually was hung. Uh,
Mm.
and that was the moment that uh, I think I remember what life is about and what life is like. And my dad and I had to bury Smokey was his name. It was a little York Shire Terrier dog, and we had to bury that dog. And that I think I was 3 or 4, and I remember my dad trying to explain life and death and the reality that the moment you start living, you actually start dying.
Mm.
And, I think that was an extremely powerful moment for me um, for multiple reasons. Um, life is precious. Life is a gift from God, and we need to be able to live it to the fullest. But we're created for a reason, and
Yeah.
so we need to be able to pursue that reason. And I think a lot of people, and I think one of the lessons I learned from that is a lot of people don't know what they were created for. And so because they don't know what they're created for, they actually abuse their life in multiple ways. They waste time, they waste money, they waste energy, they waste their gift. And I think part of it is in the scripture when Jesus says, "This is what heaven is like," and he talks about the master giving the talents to uh,
Hmm.
the guys, the 5, the 2, and the 1. I think a lot of people live. It's very rare that you have the people that get the 1, the 5, and the 2 that they invest their life because they knew what their life is for. And then I think a lot of people live in that 1 talent that they were afraid of the master. They didn't know what they were supposed to do with it. They don't know what they're supposed to do with their life, and then they bury it in the ground. And then that's when the master comes back and says, "You're a wicked, evil
Yeah.
servant. You didn't do what I gave you to do with it. And I actually think a lot of people live life like that because they just don't know what they're created for. So I actually think that's one of my, if you want to call it a superpower, I don't like that word. I think I was created by God to draw some of that out of people just through the experiences that I've had from a young age. Um, I I feel things very deeply, and I think probably going back to the point of uh, having to recover that smoky dog and bury him, and my dad explaining what life is like, about everyone's going to die. What are you going to do before you die? And no one knows when they're going to die. Even if you have cancer, we do everything we can to fight that death, right? It's inevitable. 100% of people who live are going to die. And what are we doing with our life to that point? We shouldn't want to leave a legacy other than I loved, I served, and I cared for everybody around me. That's really what we should do. And everybody has different capacities of doing those loving and serving and giving and caring. And even if you have a career that's about making money, what do you do with it? You can't take it with you. So how do you invest it? How do you uh, bless others with that? Because just like God told Abraham, uh, I bless you to bless others. And so I think it's important that we learn those at an early age. I don't know many churches that actually teach that. You're actually created to lay your life down for others. And so that's what we should learn to do.
Yeah, I do quite a bit of life coaching because in my mission and in my business, a lot of I teach salespeople and business people, but a lot of them are not motivated and not driven, and that's what their employers want me to help
Yeah.
them with. And the reason why I start with life coaching is because many of them don't know, they have identity crisis, don't know who they are and what they want, and that is what everyone desperately wants to find out. But without surrendering to the God's flow of life, it's really hard to find, because you have to remove yourself. And so many people, are setting up these dreams and goals, uh, and they mix the desire of their heart with these material things, when we're chasing experiences. And to have an experience that you must be alive versus not be alive makes all the difference about the meaning of life. So the meaning of life is to find out your true gift from God, your
Mm.
true purpose. Stay on that path, walk with his speed, which means no time to think, because that's where the devil is hiding in
Oh,
in
yeah.
the in
Yeah.
the in the words. The devil has all these words, but the soul feels. The devil wants all the credit. The mind wants all the credit without any of the blame, but the soul is the one that experiences the rage and the sadness, and the soul provides the joy. And it's most people are lost because they don't realize their unique gift from God
Mm.
and their purpose. And it's sad because, for example, I know a lot of people, and I'm sure you do, that have died with millions of dollars and a lot of properties, and somebody else is using them right now.
Yeah.
So lately, I've been asking myself, and the way my wife and I, look at our future is, do we need to be alive to experience all those things that we want? And when we die, we're not going to be thinking about how much money we made or what awards we received and what kind of recognition we got from people, but we will be thinking about those moments of miracles and moments where we made a difference in people's lives, and that's what is the most precious, is those experiences, that exchange of love. And that's the most precious part, it is our purpose to lay our life and use our gift for others, not for ourselves. So I'm glad you said that. It's very inspiring and thought provoking. Do you remember what your elementary school years looked like? How was your childhood? Did you have a fun childhood? Did you experience freedom during your childhood? Anything exciting in the first 10 years of your life?
Oh man. Yeah, I described a little bit about the backyard, that cliff in the back, and even though there was a one moment that was difficult and awkward, we had, um, I think it was about 4 or 5 acres that we lived on in this cul-de-sac with the whole neighborhood. But because it backed up to I guess, a cavern into a creek in the backyard, we had swings that would go off into the creek. We would go crawdad. Those are like little crawfish, miniature ones. We'd go fishing for those. We'd go capture a bunch of those. Of course, play with a bunch of snakes. And off the back deck, there was this place where we took all of our leaves and we dumped them in the backyard off this, I guess, a little ravine, and we would ride my friends and I. We would ride our bikes off that cliff and down into the leaves. We would jump. We had, of course, skateboarding. We did a bunch. Beside our house, there was a field where power lines came through, and there was these huge, I guess, ruts that were created out of water would rain into. Of course, we lived in Georgia, and so right in the middle of Atlanta, and it was Georgia red clay, and we would dig these tunnels and forts out of the ground. I would say I had a great life
Mm,
growing up. My dad and I hunted every deer hunting season. We'd go hunting. My dad taught me again how to hunt, how to fish. Um, my dad, he is a quiet, smart guy. Like he doesn't want people to know how smart he is. He really is extremely intelligent. And one of the things that I noticed, he didn't teach like from a book. He didn't teach. Probably what I need to learn to do better is he didn't teach from lectures. He really taught from showing.
mm,
And so he taught me how to track deer from a very early age. I would say I became a quick expert just because of the time my dad invested in me. And then we moved from Atlanta to Tennessee, the same thing. I went to really good schools. I had really good teachers, um, very gracious teachers. I'm a slow processor as far as I read really slowly because it's like I want to comprehend every single. Why did you put that word there? I want to know, very analytical. So it's difficult sometimes for me to just kind of read through some thoughts, other people's writings, because I want to know why is that specific word put in that specific place, because it has a very specific meaning. Why didn't you use another word? And so I kind of process things like that. And my dad, uh, teachers thought I had a learning disability, and turns out that I don't. I think too deeply about things. And my dad would say, "Look, uh, read slow. The point is to comprehend.
mhm,
You need to know what the purpose is for the sentence, for the paragraph, and what's beyond that. If somebody wrote something before and afterwards, it means that there is a reason why they did it." And my dad would encourage me, you just need to, that's who you are. You want to know why. And so I would say, I don't know if you've ever uh, read through Patrick Lencioni's the six genius, the six types of working genius. And I have my two geniuses are I wonder. I wonder why everything is the way it is. I
mhm,
ask questions about everything, and people, I'm 46 years old, and people I used to work with or in the church or um, uh, I was worked under. They would always ask the question, why do you ask those questions?
Hmm.
Why are you like this? Why do you want to know why we do what we do? And I don't know. I just want to know why. If there's a better way of doing it, don't we want to do that? If
Hmm.
there's not a better way to do it, then why are we missing parts of what we're doing? And so wonder is one of my geniuses. And then invention, I can invent anything. Now, do I have the tenacity to finish it? No, typically I don't. I don't have the follow up gear.
More of a
In
visionary.
working genius. Do what?
More of a visionary.
Y'all more of it, yeah, extreme visionary. I'd rather take whatever backpack I have and go up the mountain, and then once we get there, figure out a way how to get there. And if we can't, we'll just build a way, right? Um, so that's just kind of who I am. But my dad was very, my dad and my teachers, all through, especially my early ages, um, cultivated um, that really significant thought of why do we do what we do, um, and why do we live in insanity? That's one of the biggest things. I think a lot of people we 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 do the same thing over and over again, and we get the same results. And one of the things that I am from my dad, especially, and passionate about is there always has to be a result for what you do. Um, if it's always negative results or always causes problems, then we need to figure out a different way to do it. And so I would say the schooling that I went to, um, my parents especially ingrained that in me um, that there is a reason for things, and that's what you were created for. And
Mm.
so learn how to find out why. But again, from my dad, be tactful and be gracious because other people don't think like you. Uh,
Yeah.
they they just don't have the capacity to think like you. But once you present the thought and a way to figure it out, then they want to be a part of it. And so my dad encouraged that a lot, and so did my teachers. So why so many people in my schooling on up into high school and even college um, knew that that was what was in me and I didn't, right? Until I was about 40 years old did I really understand um, all the dynamics of who I am. And so sometimes it just takes time, but I think the people around me, they knew that there was something, again, I don't want to use the word special. There's something different. And I think a sincerity of who I was that they invested in. And so I benefited from their sacrifice and service as well, all through my schooling.
Yeah. It's it's a blessing to know. It's a blessing to be bold enough to go deep enough to find the truth and answer difficult questions. And um, and I'm so glad that you are clear on exactly what you want and exactly what your mission is and what your gift is. When when you're talking about slow reading and you appreciate words, I can relate to that so much. I am a wordsmith. I love the meaning of words. There's some words that we don't use in our household, and
Mm,
some words, you know, the power is in the word, and the word is alive. We either bless people with words or we
yeah,
curse people with words, and we it's such a great responsibility to use the proper words because sometimes unintentionally we hurt people with the wrong words. So I love the fact that you're a slow reader, and I think it's kind of like the turtle principle. That's probably fast reader because if I read fast and sometimes I have to go back and read something 3 4 times until
yeah,
I truly understand it. Where if you just move slow, you actually move fast
yeah,
because and it's also like the way you read the book of all books, the word. There's no accident in any of the words that is in the Bible. So we're supposed to read it slow, and meditate and understand each one. Each one word is there for a specific reason. That's why the
absolutely.
translations are so interesting. Like, for example, um, there is this friendly debate with my wife and I about our roles, and with the feminist movement and so many articles. Sometimes we all get our understanding of God's will a little bit blurry from all the
Right.
worldly new things, and so I come up with these verses, and she has counter verses. And recently, I just found out, it says the wife is your helper, but the word helper is so poor in the meaning of the way it's used. And then I did a deep dive in the origin of the Greek word, and it's so much richer. And it explains that it's not just a helper, but it's a foundation that is designed to be stronger when the man is weak.
Yeah.
So, and God is described with the same word. So this is when the man is cashed out and is giving up, is the wife who's going to inspire him. And like the world shows that. I mean, Rocky beat the Russian guy thanks to Adrian.
Right. Right.
It was all her. And it's just they're designed to give us that when we're at 0%, to give us that extra faith, extra strength, to boost our battery to go beyond 100. So it's so much more beautiful, and it's so much more fair than equality. It's different strengths, completely different strengths and weaknesses, and incredible contrast, but so beautiful
Yeah.
together, so complete together. And I introduced it to her. She's like, "Oh, I already knew about it. I heard about that a long time ago." But words are so beautiful and so powerful. When we're children, and that's why I'm asking all this. One of our purposes with this show is to teach people practical ways of overcoming adversity, because so many traumas and so many lives get messed up with simple "you're stupid" or "you're not worthy" or "you're," and it starts that primal question now follows, "Am I stupid? Am I worthy?" Follows the person for the rest of his life, and it's a total lie. It's not the opinion of God for him or her. And it started with a word,
Yeah.
created that false belief. So I actually love the fact that you give respect to each word and you don't move further until you understand the word. So I love that. Tell me about your teenage years, 10 to 20. Did you have um, rebellious moments, or did you play any sports, or share with us what happened between 10 and 20?
Yeah. I think I'd rather just hyperlink right into the 20s because my teenage years were because probably of my wonder tendencies, very adventurous, very inventive. I was always challenging status quo and trying to figure out life as an expedition. And so I'm going to go as far as I can into the opportunities that are given to me with those freedoms. And I took full advantage of some of those. And so I would say that um,
An
I
explorer?
was I was a difficult teen because I wanted to do everything, and so I would disobey, I would fight, I would try to figure out ways to do what I wanted to do, and I think part of it was even though I came to Christ at 12 years of age. From then after, I just was trying to figure out who I was, and part of it was these people are doing that, so I'm going to do that. These people are doing this, so I'm going to do this. But about, I would say, so from 12 to 16 was a really difficult time because I was, of course, getting freedoms, having much more opportunities to engage and indulge in adventure with my friends. And so uh, you got some drugs, you've got some freedoms, you've got alcohol and other things. And I I abused some of those early on as a teen. About 16, though, something changed. Well, first I got arrested. And so I got arrested at school. Somebody threatened to kill me at school. And so I took a knife with me to school to protect myself. And um, I would say the hand of God was on every part of my life. And even when I was arrested. And so it was the first year that that school had zero tolerance, having the knife. And I'm not talking a pocket knife. I'm talking about a big knife. I remember I mentioned that my wife and my dad and I, we used to go hunting and things. And so I tell my wife that I was
You
at
you
school with
process the guy?
crocodile Dundee knife, and that's pretty
You
much what I
already
got.
process the guy?
Yeah, yeah. And so I got arrested with the knife, but the guy that was threatening to kill me wasn't joking. And
Wow.
so when I told the police that arrested me why I had the knife at school, uh, eventually, after the soft interrogation, I said, "Well, this guy threatened to kill me, and I took him seriously, and I just wanted to be able to defend myself." Well, that officer went to go look in that guy's locker, and he had a loaded 9 millimeter and a brick of marijuana. And
Wow.
so he also was arrested. We didn't go to the same place. He was older than me, so he went to real jail. I went to juvenile jail. And when the cop asked him why,
Possession of knife?
yeah, do what?
Just for the possession of knife you went to jail?
Yeah, that was the first year that they had that zero tolerance. So any type of weapon, even now they don't allow pocket knives. Back when we went to school, there were guys that showed up. So I grew up somewhat in the country. Um, they would show up to school with their truck, their shotgun in the back window and on school campus, and everybody had pocket knives in school and all those things. And so that year that that zero tolerance was engaged at our school, it didn't matter what you had. It was immediate expulsion or arrest
Wow.
because my knife was so much, again, a crocodile Dundee knife. That's what I got arrested for. Um, but that was good. And that guy, when the cop asked him why he had the weapon at school, he said, "I told this guy I was going to shoot him," and God, His providence protected me through that. And I remember that moment. That was a significant turning point in my life as far as um, knowing what I was created for and who I was created for. Not just the Lord, but also other people. And so I would say from 16 and until today, I knew that I was created to serve and love and care for and help people. Um, so yeah, even though I would say that I had a somewhat difficult and hard 12 to 16, from 16 on, I don't think I've looked back to. I, I don't think I didn't miss anything. Um, all the opportunities that I had to sin or do other things, I didn't miss any of those. Um, but but the experiences that I had gave me deep empathy for those who that's what they wanted to pursue. And so I think probably today, those moments still made me who I am. And I probably, again, I told you I'm a deep thinker, and I think about those moments often. Um, and I think about those people that even at 16 and 17 and 18 that um, I gave my life to help out of those bad situations, which, when you're able to look back on your life and you retrospectively and go, man, God may have not created me to be a pastor
Mm.
or to be some best speaker, because I'm not the best public speaker.
You're
I can
pretty
do it. I'm okay with it, but I'm not the best. But what I
well.
am really good at, do what?
The best speakers speak from the heart, and that's what you do.
Yeah, probably that's true.
Well, we can always tell when these shiny speakers speak something that is well trained and practiced because it doesn't connect with your heart. But when
Mm,
people speak from the heart, you experience what they're experiencing as they're speaking. So those are the best speakers. That not the ones that are trained to present. Those are
Yeah.
actors. So I think
Well,
you're a wonderful speaker because
I would
everything you say comes from within.
I appreciate that. I would say from an early age, I would say that 16 years of age, I really learned that one-on-one is where is where the magic happens. That's where people they don't just hear words;
Mhm.
they experience your heart and your love for them. And I would say that again, some of the questions you asked, going all the way back to my grandparents and my parents, um, that's what I learned from them, and from my heavenly Father that um, I didn't just you weren't just a mistake. You weren't slime plus time. You were I in your mother's womb. I knit you together specifically for a purpose, and I think those words are important, not just to me but to others, because what is my purpose? I remember when I was early 20s, we would do mission team. Uh, um, People would come on mission trips or be a part of a mission trip or be helping the teens and the young adults. Even though I'm still kind of a young adult, I remember people saying, "I'm going to go become a pastor. I'm going to become a missionary. I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to do this." And I would always ask, "Why? What's the purpose for that?" Some
Mm.
would say money. Some would say fame. Some would say, I don't know, my dad did that, my mom did that. And I would ask the question, okay, that's good. That's a good pursuit. Is that what you were created for? And most people go, what? Yeah, what were you created for? And I think too many people they spend their life thinking that they were created, or because they don't know what they were created for, they spend a lot of their life trying to be accepted by everybody.
Mm.
And you only have to be accepted by one person,
Yeah,
and that's God.
unfortunately, yeah. Average people, I feel that weak people, they want easy life, and
Yeah,
they pay the price later, kind of like buying stuff on credit cards. You know what I mean? Like you enjoy, you get the dopamine hits first, and then you pay later with suffering. Then average people are chasing recognition
hmm
always, and attention, and people that want to serve, people that want to be used by God, people that don't pray, help me, but pray, use me,
yeah,
put me to work. They thrive under pressure because it's another leveling up of their faith. It's another miracle, chasing miracles, chasing testimonies, chasing His presence, and that's where all the greatness. Most great people in the Bible had that a little bit of a rebellious in them, a little bit of, and it takes for a great leader, it takes someone who is consistent and firm on what he wants. I mean,
yeah,
with little bit of wisdom and God's guidance, you're gonna start wanting the right things at some point, and it will be an amazing tool. But this is so beautiful that he saved you when you showed up to a gunfight with a big Rambo knife. That could have gone either way. uh, so tell me about your first love. When did you experience such a incredible emotion to love someone more than yourself,
um, so that's a
or something?
yeah, something, um, no, I would say it would be my wife and, Lacy, and here's how that kinda story goes. There was this, young lady that I was really, really good friends with, and I wanted to marry her. I had an infatuation for her, and, she did not reciprocate the feeling, and, so, I was trying to be patient. She was dating my best friend, actually 2 of my best friends, and she ended up dating, and,
At
I
the same
just no, not at the same time, different times, um, and, I thought I was gonna, marry her. Our families were so much similar, our dads were, similar, um, and I thought it was, perfect. And Lacy and I were really good friends, so it was not the same girl, right? And Lacy and I became really, really good friends. We, I would say, we became best friends, and we went on what I call an accidental date. So she's we're the same age, but she was ahead of me in school because when we came from Atlanta, it's a different school system. So I was a year behind, and so she was crowned homecoming queen that night, and I was part of the homecoming court with my one of my classmates as a junior, and that was not the girl, by the way. She was younger than me, and we that night after she was crowned homecoming queen, I was about to leave and go home because I had to work the next day, and so I was done with the homecoming parade and was about ready to go home. Actually, took off my suit and everything. I was about to just leave, and Lacy comes out and she says, "Hey, we're all leaving to go out. Why did you change?" I said, "I got to go to work in the morning, so I'm going home." I live 30 minutes away from the school. And she said, "No, you should come out with us. We're all going to go out, and the juniors and seniors, we're going to go pretty much party. There's a nice restaurant. We're going to go to it." I said, "Okay, fine." So I run back into the locker room, change my clothes, and meet her. Everyone is gone. And again, we're good friends. And so I was like, "Why don't we just go together?" And she said, "I'm not riding in your car because it's a little Pinto piece of junk. I got a brand new car. You can drive my car." So she's like, "Here's the keys." And so I drove. We drove and went out. Again, I had to be home early, so we ended up staying out until, I don't know, 12:30 that night to the next morning. On the way back, or at the restaurant, this is actually funny. Everybody was there before we were, and so the whole group of 20, 25, they all had this big old table. We ended up being alone in this little bitty two-top table, kind of like Lady and the Tramp. And so we were talking, and there was something that changed that night. Even though we were good friends and we enjoyed the company of each other, that night something changed during the accidental date. And I drove her home, well, back to the school where I had to get my car and leave. In the ride back to the school, actually, there's a song. She was wearing a green dress, gorgeous. Lady in Red song came on, and that's when I knew that I felt, and I didn't know she felt the same, that I think she's the one. And how I went about pursuing that relationship was that night before we left to go from the gym to dinner with everybody. Her dad said, "Hey, I heard you're going out with Lacy and all the seniors and juniors. I don't see anybody here. Here, give her some money so she can buy her food." And I was like, "Okay, sure, fine." So I put that money in my pocket. Well, I paid for the meal that night because there was something different. And the next Monday, I saw her dad at the school. He was the founder of the church and the school. And so I gave him his money back. And I said, "I had a wonderful time with Lacy, and I didn't think it was appropriate for me to use your money for what became a date for us." And he was like, "Oh, okay." So he took
Oh,
his money back. And about 3 weeks later or so, um, remember that girl I was telling you about that I was infatuated with? Um, I had something had to change. We Lacey and I were becoming more and more serious. We were there was a relationship that was developing, and again I thought she was the one. I wasn't convinced she thought that I was the one, but we continued to pursue the relationship. So I went over to this other girl's house one day on a weekend. I'm headed to Lacey's house. They live near each other. And so I stopped by at the first girl's house and I said, "Hey, um, I really think I'm falling in love with Lacy. And I think she's the one. And this other girl said, wait a second, what about us? And I said, look, there's no us. And speaking of that, our relationship, as far as the friendship that we had, today it changes. We're become acquaintances. We can be friends, but I cannot I cannot give you the friendship that I have for Lacy, the love that I have for Lacy. I can't give it to you anymore. And
Mm.
what's funny about that is Lacy was with one of her friends and was driving past the house. She saw my car and she thought that I was two-timing her. And so after my 30-minute time or so with the other girl, defining our relationship and being and again from that moment on we were not best friends anymore. We
Mhm.
didn't hang out, we didn't call her, I didn't communicate like I did until probably 25 years later or so, where we ended up being together with a school reunion. And she remembered that moment, and so did I, and she knew it was the best thing for her and for me, because she told me, she said, you were right, Lacy was the one for you. And I said, yeah, I knew it. And so from that time on, I knew that my relationship with Lacy was just not going to change. Now, what I did was for the last 28 years, I've spent my time really proving to Lacy that she is my true love. And so
Mm.
um, I would say even today, I'm not the most romantic still. She is still the love of my life, and I know that God created me for her,
Mm.
and vice versa. And because of those, throwing all of my love and affection and um, desire for her, we've been able to accomplish a lot together as a couple. And she definitely, back to the point you were talking about what a wife is to a man. She has been my firm foundation. She has been my rocket fuel. She's been my so one of my competencies. If you take the six types of working genius, one of my competencies is discernment. Well, her genius is discernment.
Mm.
So whenever I have a good idea or a bad idea, she already knows whether it's going to work or not. And because of that, when her discernment kicks in, we know we can attack things together or avoid things together.
Mm.
And so uh, I was I was blessed by at 17 knowing that not only did I know who my wife was going to be, that I devoted all of my relationship energy into her, into us, and that relationship, I would say it's been if Elon Musk is headed to Mars here soon with a team, I think we've been headed to Pluto for about 28 years, and so we're still burning lots of fuel, and it's just because we really love each other, and
That's
we know what our marriage is supposed to be for our kids, for our community, and for our church, and so um, yeah.
that's so beautiful, brother. So good. How do you describe that moment to your kids or to young men when you know you know?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you had people asking you, "How do you know when you know you know?" Like, and you probably tell them,
Yeah.
"If you don't know, it's not it. When you know, you know."
Yeah.
What was it like for you that moment?
I think it has to do with my pursuit of the Lord. Again, I'm not perfect, and I make mistakes. And again, from 16 years of age, I just knew that there's a reason to live holy, right? Psalm 119, 9 through 11 says, there's a question asked, how can a man keep his way pure? And the answer is to do what the Lord says. I'm paraphrasing, right? I'm just going to simplify that. To obey the Lord and to hide His word in your heart. That scripture, I think it's verse 10 or maybe 11. I'm not sure which one, says, "Lord, I treasure your word in my heart." um, you treasure something that's valuable.
Right.
You put gold or diamonds, money, whatever. You put it into a safe, whether it's at your house or in a bank, right? You keep it in a safe because it's valuable and you don't want to lose it. That's what that scripture talks about. Put God's word in your heart, lock it up in there, but not just lock it up in there. From your heart should be where your life flows out of what you treasure. And Lacy was the same. So I treasured God's word and God's plan and vision for my life. She treasured that in her life. And even though we have different tendencies, we have different personalities, we have different energies, we have different, uh, not goals, sometimes different ways of getting to where we're headed to that specific goal. Um, all of our purpose for living was God, family, and ministry. And because of those, um, I knew early on that she was the one for me because we were going in the same direction. Everything we wanted was for the righteousness and holiness of God.
Mm.
And I tell people, my son right now is kind of going through a thing where it's not working out so much. And I reminded him, I said, you have to find the one that God has said we're going in the same direction. We're living for the same purpose, and we want to accomplish the same things together. Now, you may fight and talk about how you differ on how to get there. That's okay. But at some point, you will surrender to each other and you will obey the Lord in that direction. And so I tell people all the time, just having fun together, enjoying the same things together, or liking the same movies or music. That's not it.
Yeah.
What you have to know is that God created this specific person to meet what I lack, which Lacy, I have a bunch of lacks, or failures or missing parts, right? She she fits all those parts that I knew. And I didn't just know over time, it was immediately when we started building that friendship. And then whenever the transition came from friendship to romantic feelings to I could live my life, all of my life with her. Um, that's when I knew. And
Mm.
part of it is, see, I knew who I was. I think that's the biggest. Most people don't know that. They don't know who they are and what they're created for. So that date, the accidental date that I referred to, I looked at her and said, I don't date. Uh, the reason to be in a relationship is for marriage.
Right.
I'm not trying to get to know you and decide if we're compatible. I think I have a love for you and I have an extreme interest to pursue this for marriage. And she said, I have the same. And I said, okay, can you go live with me in Cambodia on a dirt floor in a bamboo house with a grass roof and raise our kids like that? I said, if you can't do that, then we're not to be together. She didn't tell me that also in her heart at that time that God told her, um, yeah, you do have to follow a man. You do have to be able to take your giftings and compliment him for the calling that God has for you together. And she also wanted to do missions as well
Mm.
from an early age. And so, very quickly, when our transition from friendship to, I guess, romantic relationship, um, she also knew that she could take all of who she was and compliment me in pursuit of the Lord and the mission that we had together because it was missions. And so that's what I tell people is you have to take, even though that's exciting, right? Going living in Cambodia in a grass hut with dirt floor. If that's what you're created for,
Very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, if that's what you're created for, can they comply? Can they submit to that as well? And so that's very early on we were able to do that. So I tell all of my kids and even other people, um, what is the most extreme
Mm,
element of what you think God created you for? Paint that picture for who you say, I think you're the one, and say, can you live in this scenario? And if they say yes, then continue to pursue that. If they say, oh gosh, no, I could never do that, then probably they're not the one, or their heart is not ready for that. And sometimes it takes time. And
yeah,
so I would say, even of my older kids, they've had that similar experience, but their significant other, their spouse, um, they're willing to, but they're still fighting along the way to get to that point. And
yeah.
so that doesn't mean that they're not the one either. That just means that it takes some time to grow and develop. I would say I'm an anomaly because I knew these things when I was, you know, 15, 16, 17. Um, Most people don't think like me. I already told you that. I'm a deep thinker. I process all the cost, and when I come out of the gate with the thought or the direction, it's it's no holds barred. I just go.
Mm,
And I've learned over the time, with Lacy especially, that sometimes you have to wait before you just go. You need to prepare all your equipment before you just take off into the wilderness with a machete and some flint. You got to have some other people with you. And so that's what the benefit with submitting to my wife as well has been over the 28 years we've been together. I guess technically 30 years, 28 years married, 30 years together as a couple. So lots of lessons learned, but again, the most extreme element of what you think your life is supposed to be like, because life is not perfect. There's a lot of there's a lot of drudgery through the process to get there.
mm.
And you have to be willing to pay that cost for that purpose.
There's always a price to pay.
Yep.
So we're getting into the peak of our show, and I'd like you to please share the three biggest adversities in your life, and if you can share them in that order of
Mm.
biggest, or from the softest to the hardest, or you don't have to prioritize them at all. But what are the three biggest moments of adversity close to breaking point, um, and what did you do to overcome those moments?
Yeah. This is actually really easy for me. I've got three specific things that I think are um, the most difficult part. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time because if I cry, try to recompose myself. But they're really significant. I say the first would be, I know you mentioned that in 2008, my I moved my family to Thailand to be missionaries, and our our fourth child, we lost to a miscarriage at about I think 22, 23 weeks. And it was tough on Lacy as well. But I blame myself. I thought that God was punishing me for sins that I committed when I was a kid and on into marriage. Um, when I was younger, struggled with pornography, and I brought that sin into our marriage. And about 6 months in, I told Lacy that I was cheating on her, and she thought, I was cheating on her with somebody else. And I just said, no, in my heart, and that's what Jesus said. If
Yeah,
you lust after another woman, you've already committed adultery in your heart. And so I brought that to her and said, um, I have this issue, and I've been doing it. I want some help. And the first 8 years of our marriage, she didn't trust me. She had difficulty knowing whether I was lying or not lying. Those were just really difficult. When our first child passed away as a miscarriage, his name was Dalton. I thought that I was being punished for my sin, and I was in the process of us becoming missionaries, and I was angry at God. Um, I went through a process of significant depression. I blamed God. I blamed everybody around me. I became an angry, belligerent, um, I want to say explicative, but just a jerk. And it was probably the hardest time in my life where uh, I had to realize that God didn't take him, wasn't punishing me. That it was, yes, he did allow it, but what he was doing was he was refining and purifying my heart. And a couple months before we didn't know she was pregnant, and again, about 22, 23 weeks, the our son passed away. There was a guy who was the um, he was the director of a missions organization. He came to the church to uh, host a missions conference. He was the keynote speaker through the 3 or 4 days that he was there. And he said, um, he asked me, "Why are you still here?" He said, "You should already be on the mission field." And I said, "Well, I just don't think that I still don't think that we're qualified or we're prepared to go." And he said, "No, you're one of the most qualified people to go on the mission field because of how you live." And I let it go off my back, and um, didn't um, didn't really agree. And he said, "You know what? You need to come to one of our next steps classes over a weekend, and you and your wife need to pursue this." Well, we had scheduled the date. We bought the plane tickets to go up to Philadelphia, and that was a couple months before Lacy gets pregnant. She loses Dalton, and then after that, we go up just a broken mess. I remember I'm angry and
Yeah.
belligerent and upset with God. Lacy just lost a child, and so we're both at that moment just struggling. And over the weekend, when we would have these sessions with the other missionaries, we would have these breakout sessions, kind of like a life coach session. We would break out into those, and we had this one couple that was assigned to us, and of course, they ask a bunch of tough questions. I mean, they're interview questions that get down to the heart of who you are and what you're pursuing and all those things. They ask a bunch of questions. Well, every time we did a breakout, another couple would be added to our group to come interview Daniel and Lacy. And at the end of the weekend, um, I was thinking there's more and more and more people kept being added. And this guy who came to be the missions speaker for the conference, he was the last guy to come in, he and his wife. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to come tell us that we're the worst couple ever, that the things that I've done and said to my wife is awful. And the opposite happened. He said, it's rare that we have someone who is so honest to express what they feel and know that God is doing something in their heart.
Mm.
And we want to tell you that um, God has created you for ministry, for this purpose. And we want to encourage you to take the next step into um, being all in. And so, of course, we surrendered that moment. I think that was in 2006, early 2000, late 2006. And then a couple months later, we find out that we're pregnant with our fifth child, Dawson. He's born in November of that next year. That's the first one. Complete utter failure is what I felt. But what I learned through that moment is there are other people around you that you have to rely on. You have to be able to express those things and share your heart, and you have to be honest. You can't hide it. And that's what Lacy and I did. We just laid it all out.
Mhm.
Fast forward a couple years, we moved to the mission field, and we moved to Chiang Mai, Thailand, to learn the language and to get acclimated to the culture. to learn how the life is like in a different world. And then we finished that time, about 10 months there. Speaking of, during that time there was when our oldest daughter was almost abducted and would have been sold into human trafficking, sex trafficking there in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And God used that opportunity there to really open up the world of human trafficking and sex trafficking to us, labor trafficking and sex trafficking. And as a result, I was able to thwart the attempted abduction 2 blocks down from our house. And I chased the couple out of the neighborhood, and the chief of police came back later, 3 or 4 days later, and said, "We arrested that couple. Thanks for sharing the information with the guard shack and the police that you did." They had arrested that couple, and they confessed to having kidnapped 19 kids
Wow.
from the Chiang Mai area. And 10 of them they sold from South Africa to the Philippines into sex brothels, and those kids were never recovered. And then there were 9 kids in Chiang Mai, Thailand at the time, that they were in local brothels there in the area. All of those kids were expats. So they were migrated from different countries, ended up living in Thailand there. And so out of the 19 that were kidnapped, only 9 were recovered and returned back to their families. And that was a difficult time in our life, but we didn't really know how the impact of that moment would happen until about 18 months later, till we came home and started sharing that story with people. But in the process of that, we moved from Chiang Mai to a real small village on the Mekong River, right next to Laos. And when we got there to the team that we were serving with, again, I told you about kind of my wonder and my invention, just kind of who I am created. I asked a lot of questions. And in asking questions, I discovered that there was some low-level labor trafficking occurring within the organization. There was manipulation from the leader, and there was also the misappropriations of funds, and also utilizing scripture to control people for his specific purpose. And I would say about 3 months in living there on the mission site, I started bringing up some of these questions. And in the process, of course, he got really angry. He rescinded our visa letter, permission from the organization to continue our visa there. So we had to come home. Pretty much the Thai, because he didn't give us a letter of recommendation to the Thai government, they revoked your visa privileges and you had to leave the country. When we came home, I remember the elders of the church, our sending church, the first words they said was this: "We know you did something wrong. We're not sure what you did yet, but we got to get to the bottom of this, because you became rogue missionaries, and which is why you had to come home." And it couldn't be further from the truth. We didn't do anything wrong. I asked appropriate questions, and Lacy asked appropriate questions in the context while we were in the mission field. And we knew what was wrong, and we didn't want to correct or punish the leader of the organization we were serving with. We just wanted to help make changes. That way we weren't taking advantage of people, and that it was very honorable and respectful and loving. But for the elders' perspective to say that we know you did something wrong, we're just not quite sure what you did yet, and we're going to punish you until we know what it is, that was the second most difficult time in my life. Again, I'm not one to not speak, to not be truthful and direct. For those next 2 years, Lacy and I pretty much were just quiet.
Mm.
And the lessons we learned in that time was God is the avenger of the truth, and he will vindicate those who have a pure heart and who are obedient to him. And even though we wanted to fight and prove that we didn't do anything wrong, God told us to be quiet.
Mm.
About 2 years later, a missionary couple that was living with us in Thailand, they had a similar experience with us. So we spent the last 2 or 3 months in a type of an interrogation where the director of that organization in Thailand just grilled us and asked questions. And then the last 10 days we were there, we went through this uh, Reformation working group, is what he called it. And what I understand now was what he was trying to do was force us to comply to uh, his demands and leadership his way. And I just didn't think it was right and appropriate because he was not doing, he was lying, and he was doing things to cover up his lies. And that couple that also came as a missionary to live with us, they they went through a similar experience 2 years later, where they also began to ask some questions and realized that there were some things that were wrong. And I remember the lady that her and her husband, they were a part of that working group to fix us. That's just what we were told that they were helping do. Um, she they were being forced to leave as well, that organization. And in the top of her closet, they had a notebook that they wrote down everything that we said during the interrogation time. And she said the notebook fell out from underneath a blanket or something, and she started looking through it. And she said there were words in there that Lacy and I, heeded them to say, if you don't see what we're telling you, this is going to happen to you in the next 18 months, 24 months. And she said, to the date, we were going through the same exact thing that you guys were going through. And so they called our elders at the church and said, we misled you. We need to apologize. We want to come visit Daniel and Lacy and tell them face to face. We didn't know that. We were called to an elders meeting, and again, we thought we did something wrong again, and they're gonna punish us some more, discipline us some more. And they walked in and said, "Here's the notebook that we wrote down everything that you said." And she said, "We were a part of what this other guy was doing, and you did nothing wrong. And you were absolutely right. And all the opposition and the upholding what you thought was the truth, you did everything correct." Um, the elders of that church did a soft, man, we were wrong. We apologize for missing this. They never did a real honest, we were completely wrong. Uh,
Mm.
we're going to tell the church and other people that you did nothing wrong. Because even to today, we're talking uh, almost 15 years later, no one knows why we came home from that
Hmm.
organization. And what we were taught by the Lord was, in your most adverse problem, if you've done things right, if you've done things in a pure heart. Now, there's no way that we did everything right. Through the process, yes, I'm sure I word vomited and was angry and probably some, belligerent jerk in some moments. But for the most part, Lacy and I pursued holiness, and because the people that sent us, they didn't believe us. So all we had was the Lord to trust in. And so that was um, the second most difficult time. Um, and sadly, the next one, the third one, also has to do with um, the church as well. This last year has been really difficult for Lacy and I because the church that we've been a part of, the same church that I referred to in the second experience, we've been a part of for years. And this last year, um, we have learned what it's like to watch leadership choose wanting to be accepted by others than pursue the truth,
Mm.
wanting to be um, wanting a false peace rather than a healthy conflict of why are these things happening? Why are these things keep occurring over and over again in the ministry? Um, and watching leaders and elders want to maintain status quo over an actual movement of the Holy Spirit, which comes through great surrender and great reflection of what is the inventory of things we're doing. And again, back to that insanity. If you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you get the same dumb results or negative results or lack of growth, that's called insanity.
Mm-hmm.
And over the last, I would say, 18 months, Lacy and I and our family have gone through being ignored, being betrayed, being lied about. And then when we brought those things up to who we thought people would be honorable and trustworthy, and they just use that information pretty much against you, or they ignore it and say it didn't happen, it wasn't true. And come to find out that, again, situation after situation after situation, those things have been proven true. And again, all we really had was the Lord to rely on. But this time, we were able to. I'd say we're older and more wiser. We express the truth in love, aggressively at times. And I think that makes people uncomfortable when they don't know what to do with aggressive truth. It wasn't hateful, it wasn't wrong, but they just don't know if they continue to do these things, then the downhill progression or the death spiral. You know, Jim Collins talks about the death spiral of some organizations. They get into what's called a doom loop, and they just lose momentum, lose momentum, lose momentum. It happens just as much in businesses as it does in families, sometimes as it does also in ministry. It is a real thing. It can happen. And that's Jim Collins, Good to Great. It's a great book to learn to read through, not just for business, but for who you are personally. When you realize that, do what?
It's an easy read too.
Oh, easy read. Yeah. It's real thin. It's quick. And, Jim Collins is very, very straight to the point. That was one of the books that that really changed me in this process of, I don't have to stay on that doom loop. I don't have to stay in that spiral, in that death spiral. And I say that's what Lacy and I learned this last year, even though it was difficult, even though we were no longer where we were. And we actually recently just left that church and joined another one. The lessons we learned is relying on God are the most beneficial things that we've done. And those were hard times. We just realized that we weren't the same. Not only we weren't the same people, we God called us into something different.
Mm-hmm. Season, just
A
season.
different season, absolutely. And if God calls us back to that location, we've already said often that we are willing to obey the Lord in that. But He called us away for this season, for the benefit of us, but also our family. And what we've seen in that is, again, it took. There's another book. It's called Traction EOS. Talks about you can either go through 36 months of hell, or you can go through 36 hours of hell. And we chose the 36 months of hell that we had to live through, tried to be right, tried to expose the thing, trying to work through the process. To at some point, we just realized, you know what? They're not getting it. And now we are actually becoming the problem because we are forcing them to try to identify something that they're not willing to identify. And so now we have to remove ourselves. So the last, I would say, 36 hours of us deciding, okay, we're done, we're moving on, which was just recently. It was the most releasing moment of our life, I think. All those hard lessons learning up to today of all I have to do is obey the Lord. All I have to do is follow Him.
Yeah.
Then He leads you in a different direction than you thought you were supposed to be, and that's okay. But what we've learned through the process is, even in adversity, He doesn't change. Even in
Yeah.
adversity, his truth is still truth. Even in adversity, his love is still love. His mercy is still mercy. His grace is still grace. And he is always moving in the benefit of those who love him. It's exactly what Romans talks about. So, where would I rather be? Would I rather be right and in the wrong place, or uh, whether it's wrong or right, but in the right place? And so, I would say the latter has been the most difficult. But our kids, our family, and those that we're serving with together now, again, I would say it was just more rocket fuel for us to project us to where God has called us to right now. But it doesn't make the moment less difficult or easy. Um,
Well,
but
there's
trusting in the Lord is the most important.
relationships. There's so many relationships involved, and community, and there's love, and but sometimes we get too stuck in the church, and we don't go out there and do the work that we're supposed to. And I think it's going to end up being a good thing. After a while, you're going to look back, and you would know it was God
Yeah, I
moving.
would say for us, we realized that the bubble we force ourselves in, and the community or the tribe that we force ourselves into to stay in, we lost a lot of um, insight to what's outside. And Lacy says it best: "Of I contained myself to this, and I didn't realize that there was much more out there, and God is doing so much with other people." I thought that He only did ministry at this location, and
Yeah,
the reality is He's moving and working in other lives in a much more powerful way when you're willing to see it.
yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the kingdom principles is truth without a twist. If that's not allowed, this is no longer home, because God brilliantly gives us the gift of repentance,
Mm,
and we forget who God is someone who doesn't judge, and someone who always has enough capacity of grace. So if there's no room for the truth without a twist, and grace and forgiveness, then we're pretending to be walking with God. So you did the right thing. I mean, you've tried, and then you move on. If they want to protect this fake thing,
yeah,
then good. But it's not your home anymore, and
right.
that's okay. That's okay. You know, I like to give this, when we talked about purpose earlier. I like to give this analogy, especially to younger men who go through this wild years of self discovery through worldly traps. you know, so I give this example. If you imagine you have a DUI, and you're at court, and your attorney is the Holy Spirit, and your accuser, the prosecutor, is the devil, and God is the judge. So the accuser is like, okay, here's a video of you, uh, you know, having this aggravated DUI, being pulled over and not being able to walk straight. And at some point, the judge, God, takes his wig and his clothes, and it's Jesus, and he wants to uh, go to prison for you on your behalf. So the judge goes to prison for you and destroys the evidence.
Mm,
To which the prosecutor is not happy, but he gets what he wants. He gets the judgment. Somebody is going to prison. The evidence doesn't exist anymore. So here you are talking to your attorney, the Holy Spirit, and you're like, "What just happened here? I actually did that. This was my fault. I was driving the car drunk, and I did all these horrible things. Why did why did the judge went to prison for me? This is so kind. I don't deserve this."
mm.
And as the judge walks away in his handcuffs, he says that we were just saying, "What can I do? Can I can I owe you my life?" And he just says, "Well, go and tell others about what just happened today." And that's really our purpose, to share our testimony whenever we can with people. Um, much better way to lead people to Christ. And that's the real church to me.
Mm.
When two, three people are sharing His unconditional love and grace is when it happens. And when the church starts getting away from that and starts getting into politics, it's run away, brother. Run fast. There's so many people out there. There's millions of people waiting to be impacted by your ministry, your personal mission for your family. So that happens, and forgive them. They're lovely, lovely people that are going through their own battles with the
Yep,
enemy.
absolutely.
So pray for them, and they'll come around. People always do. What is one moment, if you can get into the DeLorean and drive back to the past? What is one moment that you would love to go back to, and you can either observe that moment one more time, with your understanding of life right now, or you could actually get in, like Marty used to be able to, and edit your future by preventing something from happening, or doing something that you wish you could have done. Is there any moment like that in your past you would like to go back to with the DeLorean?
Um, it's difficult to say. Sure, I wish I could change this. Before we were doing our prep for this time, you asked, "Is there uh, anything that you don't want me to ask or whatever?" And I was like, "Nope. Uh, Ask away. I'm an open book. I've got nothing to hide. That's who I am." Um, Off the top of my head, I do not think that I would go back and change anything. Um, because not only am I proud of the successes that I've had, I'm also proud in the failures that I've had because I didn't let failures overcome me or my trust in the Lord. And I would say every time I failed, I realized, well, I chose me over others, or I chose me over surrendering to the Lord. Um, and if I was really created to glorify God and to love others, um, then that's what I should do. The moments that I look back and go, I could have done that better or said this better. Um, I don't think I would learn the lessons that I've learned without being retrospective, but also introspective. How you know, yeah, I can look back and say there's some times where, oh man, you were a complete jerk. You let people have it. Um, but I don't think that I've come to grips with those moments. And not
Hmm.
only have I come to grips with those moments, but I've gone back to those people. Any person that I have, so I keep short lists. I have a very short inventory of people that I've wronged. Um, when God reveals it to me, I just don't say, "Oh God, I'm sorry, forgive me for my sin or my anger or my words I used." I go back to those people, and if they don't want to talk to me, well, then I send them a letter, or I send them a way of knowing that I am asking for your forgiveness. It was not appropriate what I did or what I said, and if I did it in front of people, I also go back to some of those people um, to apologize to them too because it was not appropriate for what I did. And I live that way. Um, I think though, if I could, um, if the DeLorean was real and I could get in, I probably, because I want to live my life as a sacrifice to the Lord. Um, I think about those moments often when I do fail or I am a jerk or I do sin, egregiously. Um, I think I would go back to the day um, that Christ was put to death
Mm,
because it was there that he bore my sin.
mm,
It was there that he redeemed me. It was there that he rescued me. It was there that he paid the ultimate price, like you were talking about. Um, if I could go back and watch that moment, I would hope that I would be less a jerk, less a sinner, less a problem, and more a lover of people and a sacrificer of who I am for others. I would probably go back there, but I would not change. Um, I would not change my failures, and I would not change my successes because I am much better today because the grace of God has been heaped upon me so much that I have learned that it's not me anyway that He works through. It's in the surrender to Him that He works through. So I don't think that I would personally go back and just change anything, or maybe I would do it better. Right? I might say something a little better, but man, just looking through, I don't
would
really
it be
think I
the
would change it because I am who I am because of those moments. And I value much more the grace and mercy of God because I watched when I didn't deserve grace and mercy and forgiveness, but He gave it anyway.
same? Yeah.
And that's why I think it drives me to those people. And I would hope if anybody is watching that I have wronged before and I've never made it right, man, come to me because I want to make it right now. That's who I am at my core. Um, and I typically will do whatever it takes to renew that relationship, whether we continue a relationship or not. Restoration, reconciliation is really important to me. So even when I describe some of those two difficult times in our life where we learn so much through adversity, those people, every one of them, I've gone back to and
Yeah.
said, "There, I said this thing, and well, what I meant was this, or I shouldn't have said this." I've gone back to those people and have apologized, have sought forgiveness, and have sought reconciliation. Now, that doesn't mean that they reciprocate, and I'm okay with that. But I have to do what's right before the Lord and myself. Integrity is really important to me. And when I screw it up, I want to do what I can to make it right. And I think I've always done that.
That's good, brother. That's good. Most people don't want to change stuff because they wouldn't have their life today. And um, usually the rules are to go back into your own life, but you're the first one in history to go back to Christ. uh, it comes down to understanding what happened in that moment, doesn't it? And I think that if you are witnessing that with the knowledge you have now, it probably will create impeccable faith. I agree. That's the click. That's
Mm.
when you know of God, when you finally realize what happened during the cross. I've experienced that under the shower one day. I have recently had given my life to Jesus,
Mhm.
and I asked for his presence. I invited him in my heart, and I was there. Like the shower, it seems like it was raining that day on that afternoon when he was on the cross, and I had my eyes closed, but I was there. I was there on the cross, and I was just bawling desperately because the feeling I experienced was, here is my best friend, here's the guy who dies for me, and here I am, the coward that can't do nothing about it. And he's paying my debt right now. He's paying for my sins. I felt maybe something probably not as intense, but something what Peter felt while
Mm.
doing that. And for me that was a clicking moment. After that, I just knew his unconditional love. And
Yeah,
there's no human or being that can talk me out of what I've experienced.
that's right.
It's beyond belief. It's it's certainty. So I'm so glad. I'm so glad you chose that moment to go to. Now I really want to spend the rest of our time talking about your life's mission and talking about serious problems like human trafficking. Who do you think is behind human trafficking?
Oh, that's an easy answer. Um, Satan. The-
Well, who do you think Satan is using? Because we know that God is using you and a bunch of other people, and He's about to engage um, way more people to come on the good side. I can just feel that revival, and the war against human trafficking is about to end in the next few years. We're going to start fighting back hardcore.
yeah.
And the reason why I feel I'm spiritually connected to you, I'm going to tell you on this podcast, which is a personal thing, but God gave me a vision on my 30th birthday, which was 10 years ago. I fell asleep. I was a complete mess. I was separating with the mother of my child,
Mm,
uh, and I was I didn't know Christ the way I know Him now. I had
mm,
not given my life to Him yet, and I've always had a relationship with God, but it was a love-hate relationship, and um, I fell asleep crying because I wasn't a millionaire when I was
mm,
30. And God came so hard with this dream of me living a long life, similar to Abraham, and having this big job for him. And He showed me decade after decade how my life is going to unfold. And He put this big vision that I see so clearly every single day of me living. I used to sell cars at that time, leaving the car business, and I was very successful. And starting my own academy
mm,
and to be radically relational and teach um, salespeople how to be relational and not transactional. And
mm,
then also the next decade, which I'm entering right now, is designed to be combining entertainment and education and the Word of God. So being able to educate people through stories from the Bible, but presented in entertaining version, similar to not so similar to the Chosen, because Chosen is made out so beautiful and so nice, but um, for example, portions of Acts in today's world. I feel like we are witnessing miracles and we are witnessing God's work every single day
mm.
in different parts of the world. We just don't talk about it because we don't think it has the same capacity as the miracles from the Bible, but it does have the same capacity. Sometimes underdogs win, that it's not logical at
Right.
all over the world. So we can see God's hand on this. And then finally, the final part of my life is after I turn 50. At that point, I will have so many strategic partners all over the world that share my commitment and my vision and my mission, that God will use me to help uh, Him eradicate child abuse from the face of the planet,
Mm,
and in a way where we build love centers around the world that help break generational curses. So the parents that abuse their children will have an opportunity to be educated, and the children will have the best education and be served from people that are godly people who want to help them heal from the trauma. I have that love for children that's like, I feel like they're innocent, and they don't. If I see, I used to be, my charity, my heart used to be towards homeless people and people with addictions. But the more I spend time in that, I face victim mindset, and I became so allergic to victim mindset to the point of disgust. And because I find so many of those traits in me, and I wanted to remove those traits from me because I felt like it wasn't representing the kingdom properly. It was a blasphemy to be a victim with all the great. It was serving the devil to be the victim, and I kind of ran away from that. If you're a 45-year-old addict, you need to get to your bottom and deal with God directly. Because I've tried, wasted so much energy. When these kids depend on us, no one is coming to save them, and the monsters who are abusing them um, have become monsters because of probably the same problem. So it's a generational thing, and it's a vicious circle that we need to interrupt with love and grace and acceptance and um, lack of judgment. But this is like a vision with so much detail. And every time when somebody asks me, who do you support? Who do you want? And I'm like, because my wife and I, before we got married, we went through everything by the book, and it was so beautiful. And that's how we want to raise our children. And when we shared our missions, her mission is human trafficking,
Hmm.
and my mission is child abuse. They're connected. And and I've told her many times about you and Lacy, and and you have been on my heart. Your Rescue One organization has always been on my heart and on my mind. And I know one day we're going to be doing things together. We're going to join forces. But I feel like the time has come to stand up against these monsters, and it's becoming more and more popular. And thank God, um, we have new government now. So hopefully, I know that that's a very dear topic of discussion for the new president and some of the people behind him. So I'm so grateful for what you and Lacey have done so far, and I'm so excited about the future. I think that you have been developing, building this powerful foundation, but you're about to really explode and magnify and amplify all of your gifts with Lacey, and really take that to the real meaning of global, where
Hmm.
you would cover every country, every city with with that umbrella of impeccable faith. And the tests that you overcame are so powerful. So please share with us, what is your insight of this industry? What are some harsh truths that people don't even realize? What are some numbers that people need to know about? And because so many people don't even want to go there, because it hasn't happened to their kids, because it hasn't happened to their nieces and nephews, and they'd rather pretend that it's not happening. But the more we see it, the more it breaks our heart. I mean, that movie, The Sound of Freedom, it's like a roller coaster of emotions, and it has every single state of the soul. The soul operates without the mind when it's experiencing pure rage, pure sadness and pain, and pure joy. And there are parts of all those. I feel like when we watch that movie, the mind is gone and our soul is like present on the screen, and we're just living it. Especially people who are chosen to fight this, and it's just a matter of stop being cowards and being speaking to myself as well, and be bold with that problem, which is, we prayed with my wife and we're in the process of creating our own nonprofit. And we prayed because she used to go to West Virginia and help kids there, and some organizations there. There's a huge problem with parents that are addicts and no one's taking care of their kids there. Um, so we prayed and we prayed, and God is like, you guys are in the hub. Chicago is the main hub. You are in the
Oh,
right place at the right time. You just need to stand up and start doing the work. So we are in a pretty bad place where it's like they get distributed from here because it's such a central location. So I'm going to shut up and allow you to share with us the dark truth about this. So hopefully people join us and join you in your movement, because I know you need all the help you can get.
oh yeah, I mean, definitely. The intro of just that is a reality, and you call it the dark truth. We actually call some of what we do human trafficking. Really is the dark trade. It is. It's hidden within every community. It's hidden within every economic system. It's hidden within politics. Human trafficking is interwoven into every element of life. It really is. And so, because by nature, we want to pursue comfort, pleasure, and riches and fame, right? So you've got uh, those are a push pull factor into this reality that it exists. And so what you talked about, just even a little bit as far as child abuse, I was sharing with a lady last night that our experience across the country and even around the world, there's some form of foster care in the US, but also in other countries. And every woman that we've ever served, whether she's a teenager now or, 60 something years of age, um, if they were in the some type of foster care system or an orphanage. Actually, there's a young lady in our safe house that is from Guatemala, and they didn't have a foster system, but they had an orphanage system. Well, in that system, there was an experience of exploitation and child abuse and sex abuse. And so that is a reality for every one of our survivors that we have cared for. There is just an element that, um, for some reason or another, and I answer, I kind of led with, who is controlling this? Well, Satan is controlling it. Yet, yes, he is. He, uses humans and systems to perpetuate the problem, and so we, on a daily basis, we are dealing with traumatized individuals that they've been betrayed, abandoned, abused, exploited, sold on a consistent basis. And that's the culture that they know. Many of them, I'm going to fast forward, they've experienced that in childhood. And when they're at some point, they experience homelessness and addiction, substance abuse disorder, and those occur as well. And so either you have people who are controlling the environment, which is either organized crime or just a pimp or a trafficker in general, or you have facilitators of that. So I'll just tell you a couple of somewhat case studies to be able to punctuate the thought of this. One of our very first survivors that we were a part of helping came out of Ohio. On Monday, she had just turned 16. She was in her high school, and her friend pretty much recruited her. Her boyfriend, who was older, uh, graduated from high school. He was an older individual. Arranged a photo shoot for her here in Nashville because they were 16. They were going to come down to this photo shoot. It was going to be really cool. So Monday she was in school. Monday evening she was down here being sold on the streets of Nashville. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Wednesday afternoon, about 2 o'clock, um, we get a phone call from police officer who we've been working with said, "Hey, we need your help. We've got a young lady here who is from out of state, and we just did a date, a buy." He said, "I went into the room to talk with her. Of course, we rescued her out, and but we weren't able to arrest the trafficker because he was watching from the outside." And so the story that she shared was, yeah, I was in school on Monday, and then I came down for this private photo shoot, and I was being sold on the street. Her story is uh, parents were separated. Actually, mom was in jail because she murdered her dad because of abuse, sexual abuse. And so mom was in jail because of what her biological father did to her and her siblings. And so, broken family. Granddad was raising her, but he didn't know that she was on Wednesday when we called and said, "Hey, do you know where your granddaughter is?" He's like, "Yeah, she's in her room. You saw her last time you saw her was Monday morning when she went to school. Where is she at right now?" And he's like, "Oh, I guess I don't know." And she was in Nashville.
Wow.
And so that is a somewhat of a case study of the reality of how easy it is for someone to be susceptible to be taken advantage of and exploited. Another situation is we have a young lady who's Hispanic, who, again, she was in Guatemala in a group home. Well, she experienced abuse there in the group home, the orphanage. And she ran from that and lived on the street. Again, on the street, she was abused and taken advantage of. Well, she fled to the U.S. for an asylum. She got that asylum. And then when she got here, she went to live with some people who said they were going to take care of her. And almost immediately, they started arranging dates for her to pay her rent and utilities and all the other things, her phone. And they facilitated, her dates for the money. And for the last 4 years, she's just been living in that cycle over and over again. And sadly, we've had to rescue her 4 different times
Wow.
from that. And so when I say it's part of a culture, it's interwoven within uh, um, the dark trade. It's such a subversive and evil culture that it's difficult to overcome. Systems perpetuate it. Lack of proper uh, legal system. I mean, so we have right now, and I hope it changes. But I'm not sure that it will because the system is just somewhat broken. That there's not proper arrests and prosecution and convictions of traffickers. There's not enough money to take care of the victims and survivors that we have, and we have a similar. We use some similar words. So you have a victim. That's someone who has been victimized, and they have never become a survivor. A survivor is someone who is rescued from being a victim and they're no longer victimized. But sometimes some of those, they will respond like a victim often. Entitlement, I need this, I need that. It wasn't my fault. It was my fault. All those things. And you have people who are survivors, but they never get out of that stage. And then
Mhm.
you have very few that become overcomers. And we're talking a lot about overcoming. A lot of those, let me rephrase that. Every one of those who do become an overcomer, um, we use a terminology of um, every survivor has to face their Mount Everest. And a climber to come to Mount Everest, if he doesn't reach the summit or she reach the summit and come back down to share the story, they're not an overcomer.
Mhm.
If you just make it to the peak and you die on the way down, you're not an overcomer. And so we use those similar terms with our survivors, and we're able to kind of categorize those levels of completion. When you get up to the top of the summit and you come back down and you say, "This is what I experienced. This is what I've been able to overcome." And then you say, "Okay, survivor or victim, let me help you walk to the summit. I'll teach you along the way to get there. and to get back. If you never make it back, you're not an overcomer. So the ability to be able to make it to the top and come back and say, I have gone through this, I have done it, I can do it, is the ability to say I'm an overcomer. So you got 50 million people around the world who are being trafficked, roughly 2 million of those. And I think those numbers are low in the US. I think they're low too. You got about 2 million people in the US who are being trafficked. I don't know about Chicago or Illinois, but I can tell you in Tennessee, we have 600 to 900 runaways every month of minors.
Wow.
And within 72 hours, about 125 of those, so 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 6, the statistics change a little bit based on just some of the numbers that you get. You have about 125 a month in the state of Tennessee alone who enter into some form of human trafficking. Usually sex trafficking is a number one, but labor happens as well. And so you also have back and forth. If you have some type of labor trafficking, agriculture.
Where is the labor trafficking in the United States?
So labor trafficking in the U.S. is either migrants or really people who are taking advantage of for the purpose of labor. So restaurants, nail parlors, massage parlors, housekeeping, um, any type of work that can be exploited is labor trafficking.
But
Um,
could that be sometimes? I mean, these immigrants, they don't have any other opportunity to survive. Sometimes it's like they they pursue an opportunity to work, and obviously employers take advantage of the fact that they don't have
yes,
documentation, so they can get away with paying a lot less. But that's the only chance for those immigrants to survive. It's kind of
yeah,
like
it's
I'm an
true.
immigrant, so it's they see it as a blessing.
Yeah,
Uh,
they do, but even then they're taken advantage of.
yeah.
And the story of Ruth in the Bible is a really good help to understand this scenario.
Mhm.
Boaz was a landowner, and he had lots of fruits and things that were being produced on his land, and he allowed immigrants. It actually was part of law that God put into place to allow when you dropped parts of the harvest, you're not to go back to pick it up. You leave it for the workers or the immigrants or the people who have less to actually come back and get that. So there is biblical precedence to actually help in a right way. So he was a landowner, he was a an employer, and there are scenarios and laws of God or practices of how you love others, which is what that means, to be able to allow others who less fortunate is not the way to say it, but either taking advantage of, exploited, or they are immigrants, migrants, they don't have a way to provide, that they have access to the things that they do need to provide for themselves or their family. And the church doesn't teach that. The
Yeah.
church teaches, when's the last time you've heard a sermon on in out of Ruth and Boaz, who, by the way, the Christ comes through that relationship, and that's a very important story to know moving forward.
Did you
Um,
know that? What was the name of Ruth? Naomi? What was the name of the other lady that Ruth was? Naomi was her. Was the older lady, right?
right, was her mother-in-law, but
Mother-in-law.
they come from the lineage of Rahab,
Right.
the prostitute who was
Oh,
at Jericho.
yes. So there was a in that story there was some type of conflict between Ruth and another lady, which I forgot her name. Uh, Oprah,
I,
something
I
like
don't,
that.
I'd have to look at it specifically.
Yes, and she is the mother of um, Goliath,
Oh,
and
really?
David comes from Ruth. is like her grandson or something like that.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at that genealogy.
And
Um,
then later on, historically, their grandchildren are meeting as David versus Goliath.
oh yes, you're right.
It's an incredible story, but it just shows you God's design for the whole Christ being.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah, and her relationship with Naomi is also a great example for yeah. Not a lot of people talk about Ruth, and it's powerful what's
Yeah.
happening in her life, and
So even though there is a healthy way to support migrants and immigrants to be able to uh, sustain where they're living, um, there are other people because of greed and because of wanting to control environment that people take advantage of other people. And when you devalue the human for the product, whether it's labor trafficking or sex trafficking, then it's always abuse. And people aren't products, and they're not just workers to take advantage of and pay less or to control. And so that happens a lot. So in the U.S., actually around the world, you've got multiple scenarios where in the Philippines you've got a different group of people, or what people refer to a lesser group of people. They call them in the Philippines, they call them the IPs, the indigenous peoples, that are pretty much migrants. They're boat peoples. They're not real Filipinos. They're not from that Japanese descent from northern Philippines, and so they're the natives, and they get taken advantage of. They're less educated, and they're laborers, and so it's easy to take advantage of them. The same thing happens in Thailand, in China, in Guatemala,
in the
all over.
Philippines, they all have a helper, right? That's what you're referring to. Even the poor people have helpers that they pay, like maids.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's the
Some of
Philippines.
them do, yeah. Especially the more wealthy do. But what I'm referring to is not just a maid where you pay them a fair wage. You control them or keep them somewhat captive, or captive, and you pay them an unfair wage, or no wage at all. And
Oh,
so that's what happens as well. And I would say that happens in the U.S. here as well, with labor trafficking, but also in sex trafficking. So another scenario is you have those ladies who come to live in a house. Okay, fine, we'll keep you here. You can stay in this house, but you have to do these things. You have to go work at this club. You have to perform these sex acts. You have to do these things. And if you don't want to work at the club, then you can go do the out calls at another house in another county, where we arrange dates to come as well. And so those are actually occurring. We're actually working a case right now where that's occurring. And because it's difficult for law enforcement to prove it, and it crosses county lines, um, they they don't have the time and the manpower uh, to affirm it and also prosecute. They actually, in my county where we're at, they did a raid about a month ago, and they arrested 6 traffickers. They were from different countries. They were from Central and South America. There were no victims. It was a sex trafficking scenario, and they arrested no victims. They didn't recover one victim. All they did was they they seized houses and properties and vehicles, and cash, and they didn't do they found no victims. And so my question to some of them was, what were there victims in the first place? And I don't have an answer yet. And
mm,
so part of the problem is that um, you've got well-intentioned people to do some of these things, but again, they're locked up in the system, and some of it they just need to recover money, and they need put money in their account so they can do other things, buy more equipment, do whatever it is, and so that becomes difficult. They chase that rather than being able to identify the people who are being exploited and used and abused. And so we've got that scenario as well that occurs often here in the U.S. And then I just heard on the news the other day of Chinese migrants or immigrants coming in through Florida, and they just discovered a bunch of them in a U-Haul van. And what they're doing is they're bringing them here through some port of entry, and then they bus them or move them to some other state where they engage in some form of labor trafficking. But where we see labor trafficking, we almost always see the convergence also or intersection of sex trafficking as well. And so it just happens on a consistent basis. So if 1 out of every 6 runaways are going missing into some form of sex trafficking, and the average age of entry is 13 or 14 in the US, 9 overseas, then we have a continual, perpetual problem, which is why we do prevention. If I can get it here, that we prevent by raising awareness, talking about human trafficking, what it looks like, and helping churches and groups create safe families. If you have safe marriages,
Yeah.
safe holy marriages, you have safe holy families, and you have safe holy churches, you will prevent a lot of the susceptibility or vulnerabilities to being trafficked. You also will open up opportunities for people to share their vulnerabilities of I've been abused, I've been hurt, I've been experienced this. You provide opportunities for that to be exposed, which means you can also move into the rescue part of, and it's not kicking down the doors. It's rare that we kick down doors and take somebody out. I mean, that's kidnapping actually. But there are ways to go about doing it. And we do that very rarely. We always coordinate those situations with law enforcement, or they at least know that we're doing it, coming into an area to do what we're doing with, especially with adults. If it's ever a minor, we need to have law enforcement involved and Department of Children's Services. And so we facilitate those relationships as well. We have a liaison between us and law enforcement to help do that. Rescue and recovery sometimes looks like we go on outreach. Again, that's prevention. We go on outreach to these areas where we do know that there's high crime rate, high drug use, high rapes, and prostitution. We call it prostitution. It's forced trafficking is what it is, or paid rape. That's a term we use as well. We know where those locations are happening because we do crime maps. We do talk with law enforcement, and we do talk with churches in the area where they say, hey, such and such thing is happening here. I don't know it's human trafficking. It usually always is, but it's hidden by all these other elements that you got to be able to identify and work through. So we do outreaches in those areas. We mobilize people, some churches and people into those areas to go serve. And again, it's food. How can we pray for you? We get to know you. You build relationships, and potential rescue, as a lady says, we say, hey, I know what you've been doing. I know I watched you get out of that white truck, and I know what you did. You went and coached this other girl. He's going to take her to a location to do a date somewhere else. And you went and told her what to do, calmed her down, gave her some drugs so that she could be calm, right? And I said, I'm actually telling a real story. When are you going to be done doing this? And she's like, I just don't know how long you've been doing it. About 10 years. And I said, you can get out of this. You can have a different life. And she's like, this is all I know. She's 50 years old, and she's been doing this since she was 40.
Wow.
She's stuck in that environment and can't that culture, and doesn't know a way to get out of it. And so at some point, we've had several say, hey, I know you've expressed a way to get out of this life. How do I do that? And so sometimes that's what rescue looks like. And again, that for us, it's easy because we know where they're going to. For them, it's not, because they can control that hell or that environment that they're in very easily, right? They can choose whether they're going to do this or not do this. But then when they go to this, when they go to safety, they go to security, they go to recovery, it's an unknown, and they don't know how to control that environment. And there's always an expectation of, well, you gave me something. What do I have to do for you? And it's always connected to some type of sex
Yeah.
act. And so we
Because
just,
they've been manipulated in the past that way.
Absolutely, a
Big,
bunch of manipulation. Yeah.
big rescuers have just sold them again and again and again.
Yeah. So in order to have a human trafficking case in the US or even around the world, you have to have three elements of what's called action, means, and purpose. And the action is somebody figuring out a way to control the environment of that individual, whether it's labor trafficking or sex trafficking. I've acquired them. I purchased it from somebody. I manipulated them to be under my control. And I did that through force, fraud, coercion, some type of manipulation really is what it is for the purpose of either selling them for sex or using them for some type of labor. And so if you have, for adults, if you have three of those elements, action, means, and purpose, it's a human trafficking case. For minors, you only have to have two.
Mm.
If somebody has a child or manipulates a child or has child pornography for the purpose of selling it, it's human trafficking. And so we can actually arrest with law enforcement. We can help arrest people who, if they have some type of child porn or they are having sex with a minor and they paid anybody for it, they can be charged for human trafficking. And so those are a lot of what we facilitate. And we work in the Philippines, we work in Thailand as well. We've done some work in Ukraine, and we have taught some of those same aspects of what this looks like to those folks. And I look forward to in the future being able to share that more in the future. And restoration, you mentioned Sound of Freedom a couple times, and it's a great movie to articulate what it really looks like. The difficult part is once you get a survivor, not just keeping them in a safe space where they don't run back to where they came from, but helping them through the lifelong recovery of that. And so again, I use the analogy of Mount Everest. Each survivor has to be able to go up there Mount Everest. Some survivors, they just never make it to the top. They're just always working through recovery and dealing with these things, and that's okay. At least we're working on getting to the top. And it's a very low percentage of survivors who make it to the top and are able to come back down and say, okay, I've been able to do that. Let's take some more survivors up their Everest. We spend a lot of time prepping to prepare them for that journey because you got to have a lot of endurance, a lot of strength, a lot of personal agency, self-worth, and determination to do it. And those are some of the things we're actually talking about in general of how to overcome. They've never overcome things in their life. They've been controlled and manipulated a lot of their life. And so how do you give them small wins to feel like an overcomer, right? You have to create scenarios where they accomplish this task. They figure out how to deal with anger management. They figure out how to actually accept somebody else for who they are, internal conflict, those type of things. You've got to create small wins for them to be able to overcome that before they can really tackle the significant trauma of their Mount Everest. And so that's what we do on a consistent basis. And some people rapidly go through treatment, but then they still have to practice with the tools we teach them, over and over. And so that's difficult. That takes a lot of, how do I want to say this? The burden for those who are practicing with survivors to become overcomers, it's really heavy. It's very burdensome. Because you're hearing the stories of the trauma and the abuse and the use and what people did to them and what people's expectations of them are, what people think of them. You're pretty much, it's like vicarious trauma or secondary trauma. You're going through similar trauma with them as a recovery team. And it's not just one person. Right now we have 6, 7 in our safe house here in Nashville. We're getting all of that at one time as a team, helping them through some of those. And so it just weighs really heavy on our hearts and our minds. So one way people can be a part is, man, we need prayer because this is tough for us to work through. I could talk for hours and hours about this because this is what I do for a living, but I want to be able to answer some questions if you have some more.
Well, it is. I think that probably it's easier for people who have been victims of labor, slavery, to become survivors and overcomers, because with the sexual abuse, there's so much shame and guilt involved. With the labor slavery, it could make you a stronger person, especially if it's for not for a long period of time. But the sexual part is so horrible and so difficult, because I feel like to get to the point of overcomer, you probably have to get to the point of dealing with forgiveness,
Oh yeah.
um, and that's something unforgivable. And but without fully forgiving the abuser, you cannot come back down and heal others, right?
Yeah.
So um, I've had a gentleman. I don't know if you're familiar with that show, The Secret.
Oh yeah.
And there's Dr. DeMartini, who was one of
Hmm.
the people that he was also guest on my show here at the Overcomers, and he specializes on people with extreme trauma. Like
Yeah.
one of his patients is a lady that was uh, gang raped by 180 people or something like that,
Wow.
and and, and he was able to extract, but staying with her through the pain, obviously for a long time, they were able to extract. The final question is what positive came out of this, and that's like the
Mhm.
hardest question to answer. But eventually, that's what I see as graduation, based on what you're describing as an overcomer, is when you can speak about it without being attached emotionally to the pain anymore. And this is so complicated. I read prevent, rescue, and restore. That's the part of the restoring the human. So that's not possible without God, and
Right.
it's leading them to. So basically, you're showing us maybe like a three-level system where there is um, small time trafficking, like anyone could do it pretty much in any neighborhood in any city. Um, then you have organized crime that could be a little bit more substantial, where there is like fashion studios, and there's like a machine built to just bring new recruits, and and then there is the global machine that allows those mid-level machines to exist and protects them legally and protects them financially, and uh, just sends you to, and also keeps the good guys separated so they don't form a stronger coalition, they don't form a stronger organization, right? Because if the good guys are as united as the bad guys, there will be no more bad guys. um, but the good guys are not united. So have you reached to other, or is there a process of uniting forces in this world? Because everything is done so underground, based on what you're describing. Sometimes you're talking to law enforcement, and law enforcement tells you we're powerless, you guys got to go and do our job, and we'll just close our eyes, or we'll let you do it because that's the best we can do. And that's sad that we're spending so many resources, trillions of dollars, to build weapons and to help different countries, and there is no resources being spent on protecting our children. So that's so wild. Is there a process of unity, even though it doesn't have to be through uniformity, but like, is there a big leader who is maybe underground? You don't have to mention his name, but is there someone who's trying to unite all these little militias, all these little organizations across the country in one hub? So is there something going on? We're hopeful.
Yeah. There. I would say there are some, and I'm going to go back real quick to talk about that significant trauma. What we deal with is compound complex trauma. And so you've got trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma that our survivors and victims experience on a consistent basis. And even once they get out of that enslaved culture, that uh, they perpetuate some of those things in their life. And so it's normal for them to revert back to what they've learned. And so trying to help them overcome that, again, it's just a long time frame. And it does take what you're referring to as a coalition of people, a mobilized group of people who focus on these things. And so we work with multiple organizations across the country and some even overseas. There are so one of our biggest problems with what we do. So when I say we prevent, rescue, restore, we focus on those three areas, which means we educate the public. We educate people of their vulnerabilities. So we go to schools to talk to children. Be careful online. Don't believe these people. Don't do these things. Don't go to these parties. If you don't pop it, you don't pop the top on the drink. Don't drink it because you can get roofied. And even though those are the least ways, kidnapping, like our daughter, the attempted kidnapping that she experienced, is the least way that people get into human trafficking. It's really manipulation through a boyfriend or someone that they know, family, that is the controlled environment, the controlled relationship that gets them engaged in that lifestyle, right? And so we have a problem. One of our biggest one is transportation.
Mm.
So I'm in Nashville. I get a call from somebody in Tampa, Florida. We've got a girl. She's at this location. We can't keep her here at our organization here because she has a lot of access to all the things that's going to keep her enslaved here. We need to move her. Okay. Well, I could drive down to Tampa. That's 10 hours.
Mm-hmm.
10 hours back. That's 20 hours of driving. So we have to stay over the night, right? Usually. So I'm going to drive the car and I have an female advocate with me. We're going to go down and we're going to process the transportation to our organization. Well, that is the worst scenario ever because you have 10 hours of her coming back. She doesn't know who we are.
Right.
She hasn't built any affinity with us. She can't trust us. All she's going on is this person said, you can trust them. It's fine. Go with them. They have no clue who we are, right? So we have an organization that we partner with called Freedom Aviation Network. They provide flights, private flights, sometimes commercial flights. So we go and we send an advocate with them. They provide those flights from wherever it is to the organization. And so we partner with them consistently. We had an operation we just did where we had to fly to a somewhere in Georgia to go do a rescue, and they provided the flight there and back for the team. So you had me, and you had a security officer, and then you had an advocate with us that went, and we were able to recover. So we work with them consistently. We use we're their number one used organization. We use them quite often because we do a lot of what other organizations don't do. We do the rescues and the recovery and the transportation of others, even if it's not to our organization. If it's another organization, there's several in Middle Tennessee, Ohio, Iowa, Texas that will call us and say, hey, we need help with an advocate transport of somebody to our organization. Can you do that? And we do that often, which means we incur the cost of that individual, the food, the other things. Now the other organizations, they have volunteers that they use their planes to fly us wherever we're going, which is wonderful. So we utilize them. We have an alliance of other organizations that if we have a victim here that we can't care for, survivor that we can't provide the what they need specifically, we help facilitate the referral to another organization, and then facilitate the transportation as well. Because now we've built a relationship with them, and it's not, we don't just put them on a bus or a plane and just fly them out to wherever. We hand deliver them, for lack of better terms, to that organization. And then we have there's what we really do need is a good coalition of businessmen and businesses who will say, I understand that there is substance abuse involved with this, there's homelessness involved with this, there is manipulation and control, there's broken families, there is they need a new avenue of they were in the service industry. Let's teach them other tools, other traits. Let's teach them to roast coffee and to maybe even have a little food truck where they do they're a barista with a little bitty coffee truck or a trailer. Let's do some of those. And so we have that slowly occurring right now. Um, but what we do is it's really slow. So survivors, when they come into your care, it's not 6 months, they're healed, they're good to go. Some of them take 2 years. And it's 2 really long, arduous years of dealing with their trauma, their past, and learning how to be, healthy in the future. And so for some people, we have donors and even churches, they want certain metrics that we can't provide for them. It takes 2 years sometimes, and they're just impatient, and they're not willing to invest the energy and time as well with that one or two or three to get them across the finish line or down the summit, right? To be able to say that they have overcome, they're healed. And so being able to articulate the reality of what we face on a consistent basis is really important. It's not just we rescued, we put her through a program, and now she's living independent. Sometimes that takes some people, that's in 3 6 months, they're good to go. Most of them, 2 years is a minimum for them just to feel like they have enough to where they can live independence. But every one of them that has come through our program, graduated through our program, or have left our program and come back and said, hey, I really need help with this. They need constant relationship, and it's not feasible. So we've been doing this for 15 years. We have hundreds of survivors that have come into our program. We don't have the personnel to be able to, or the funds to care for them, for 15 years in relationships one-on-one, right? So what we do have to do is mobilize mentors into that relationship. We
Yes.
can guide and teach and help them know how to do some of those things. And if anybody calls us, we always respond, even if they've been graduated 10 years out of a program. We respond always in turn. But the goal is that they have mentors and guides and other people around them to help them continue through, like a safety net. And so I would say that we do that with some other organizations, and there's other organizations. There's one in Birmingham, Alabama. They do some things a little better than we do as far as independent care on their campus. We want to get to that as an organization here, and we're making steps toward that. But they do a really good job of it. And while we're not there where we want to be yet, in the next 3 to 5 years, we work really well with that organization to do that. And then awareness happens as well. There's a guy named Yako Boyens. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a very intelligent, very articulate speaker. He's working some with President Donald Trump on some of their anti-trafficking, counter anti-trafficking efforts. And he's a really, really good voice. And he's able to get businesses and practitioners and survivors together for the purpose of helping people understand how we overcome human trafficking. And there's just so many elements to it that there's a lot of work to do. It takes someone like you said. I can't be involved in homelessness ministry, in child abuse ministry, in or counter human traffic, counter homeless, counter sex abuse, counter all these other things, foster families, foster kids, adoption. I can't be a part of all those ministries and do anti-human trafficking. Now, the reality is what we work in, it touches all of those ministries.
Yes.
We have to have partners who they do that specific thing way better than we can. I can identify trafficking anywhere. Our team, but we can identify human trafficking and respond to it anywhere in the world. We that's something that we've been able to learn and do. But I can't deal with the homelessness. I can't deal with the foster family needs. I can't deal with those things. But those things, if people will focus on those, they're actually preventing trafficking from occurring if they do it really well. And I think that's some of what churches miss. They think they have to have. We've got some church partners who they think they're going to be on the front lines, like Sound of Freedom, going in and kicking doors. No, that's not what you're going to do. You're going to do some outreach, and you're going to do some praying, and you're going to do some mentoring for some survivors. There's only a handful of people that really um, get the opportunity to go kick down doors. And it's not because they were seeking it, it's because it happened in the moment. And that's just the reality.
This is the most disappointing part about the church, and I actually started something called businesses ministry, and uh, basically started as an idea. I was at church, and I was really in need of a younger um, assistant that I can take under my wing and show him what I do and really mentor someone, because sometimes the best way to learn is to teach. And
Right, right.
I'm like, this is the vision I saw was a young person at church praying, uh, God, please bless me with a mentor who can just teach me how to live. And then an older person at church praying, please bless me with somebody younger that I can pass on my passion. And both guys are sitting next to each other, but their conversation is, can I pray for you? Instead of
Mhm.
having a practical conversation about their struggles, their lives, and to help each other in a practical way, not just pray for each other. I mean, nothing against prayer. Prayer is so critically important. But besides prayer, those acts of kindness are also critical. And um, why don't you go to the Chamber of Commerce? Not why don't you go, came out wrong. But you could choose to go to the Chamber of Commerce and prepare a presentation uh, for for that, and even have a reversed job fair where
Mm,
some of the graduates are now preparing a presentation of their skill set, and then the Chamber of Commerce um, actually chooses some of them that are in the mental and physical state to be ready to be led into something. And obviously you have to vet those businesses, because there is some people with bad intentions, that there is some wolf in sheep's skin. So the worst thing would be, oh yeah, that's an abused girl, let me take advantage of her one more time. That could happen even with people that you don't even assume. So um, it's vetting those potential businesses that could be potential partners, that their intentions are pure first, and then putting your graduates in front of them. That could be a great connection of people who want to worship God by doing acts of kindness, and helping the restoration process, because it's a lifelong process. So you can
mhm.
say, hey, this is what we can do. It's kind of like the Christian with the boombox on the street. I'm not that type of guy. I'm not the guy that would go out and scream Jesus loves you. And I'm not saying that this guy is not impactful. We need this guy as well. We need the guy on the street. But when someone accept Jesus in that type of impulsive encounter, still needs to be led on the next day, because it wears out so fast. So many people get saved on big stadiums and big revivals, and then 2 days later they go back to their old life.
Yeah,
So it's, once when you lead somebody to Jesus, you're responsible for them like they're your child. You have to, if you can't offer them the community and the mentorship, then you have to have a partner who, like you said, is mastering that aspect of the restoration. So, like, you need life after rescue one. You need partners for the rest of their life. And And that part about the business people really light bulb came out, and I was like, you are, if you just make presentation in front of Chamber of Commerce, but make it so they apply with you, so you could first investigate them to see if their values, if their mission for their companies aligns with what these people need. So if there's a qualification process, they probably, in such shortage of good employees right now, they probably
Right.
get some of the best people through these programs. But they would need to understand the responsibility of working with that person. That
Yep.
it's not a regular employee. That these people have special needs, and they are different sensitivity uh, person. But you desperately need that passing those people on to, because all of your effort gets destroyed when they go back to the system, when they go back to the machine.
Right.
Like the girl that you had to say 4 times, that was just, your capacity is over. Just like the boombox guy is only good at the first step, the inception, when you feel the spirit upon you. But then after the inception, the next step is deception. The next visit is from the devil, who's going to tell you that was all bullshit, bro. You
Hmm.
know who you are. You know what you are. And we have to survive the deception so we can get into the transformation stage and start going through the what you call survival and overcoming. So we
Yeah.
so we could have new identity. Otherwise, all of your effort is like the boombox is thinking, I've saved millions of people. Yeah, but only 3 of them graduated all the
Mm.
way through. The other ones went right back to being lost. And great, some of the greatest um, and most radical um, people that led, like Reinhard Bonnke, millions of people at the stadium are experiencing this miracle. But how many of them actually led their way for the rest of their life? You know how
Right.
difficult it is with
Yeah.
temptation. So
Very, very difficult. Yeah.
thank you so much for everything that you shared today. And please let our viewers know exactly what you need help with. Obviously, in order for the good to fight evil, we need to use similar tools. We need to use the same set of skills sometimes, so we could be competitive. And if we're fighting guys who can start it in the neighborhood, then maybe if some people who are watching this and feel um, called from God to be a part of that, could they start something small, something local, like a local militia? Could they? What would be your advice for them, of the guys that say we don't have the resources. It's just me and a couple of other fathers who can't stand this anymore. We want to do something about it. What would be your advice of starting small on a local community level, even if it's just a neighborhood watch
Yeah.
or a small city? How can people still be helpful so they can fight that first wave of evil, the people that are that have a couple of girls or few girls that are playing small still? How can they kill that at early stages so they don't grow their operation?
Yeah. So Rescue One has a training and mobilization training, a course that we can bring to those people. And so if that's something that somebody wants, hey, what is human trafficking? What's the extent of it? Okay, I understand what it looks like globally, but what does it look like in my area?
Yes.
We can help you pinpoint some of those. And most people don't want an awareness without some type of action. And so we've got really 3 different ways to be able to respond to those areas. Some people just want to do prevention, raise awareness, and teach people how to not be vulnerable or susceptible. we can teach that. Some people want to learn how to get to the streets and go out and identify those areas of need. And then there's a safe way, that the good protocols need to be put in place. That way you don't put someone at risk or in danger, of how to respond. And then how do you engage with those survivors uh, for the best of for their best recovery.
Right.
And so we have a pathway to be able to integrate that into people's lives. I would say that's the first thing. If you want to mobilize into be able to fight this in an effective way, then contact us, or the where it's rescue1global.org. It's rescue the number one global.org. And there inside there's a get involved, and send us a message and say, hey, I really want to fight this with you guys. Come teach us how to do this. We can do that.
So you will
Second,
help with you will help them with like a strategy, what to prioritize first, especially when they're lacking resources, what to focus on and how to be effective right
yep,
away.
just like a master class of any others, we do the same thing. If people want to do like small scale, small amount of impact to large amount of impact, we can do a master class of what those look like. Those are about that we do ongoing trainings, but about three specific courses can get you the information up to speed of here's what it looks like, here's where it's happening, and this is how to respond in a healthy, effective way. And so we do that. We've done that in multiple countries. We've done that in multiple states and multiple locations. We've helped organizations that they were really this small doing this, and then we came in and helped them pinpoint some of what they're really really good at, what their sweet spot is, and then they've grown and excelled. One of our partners is like that, was down in Birmingham, Alabama, that they found their sweet spot, and we helped them with their sweet spot, and then we utilized them because they were better at it than we were, and so we utilize them even to today as that good partner. So we can do that anytime. I'm one of the speakers to come do that. I can come do that for anybody. It's really easy, and of course, I love meeting new people to be able to teach them and equip them how to move forward. And it's not about building Rescue One. It's about building, like you said, the force of people that have the drive to identify this and respond to it in a healthy way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so critical, and some people are thinking that's not happening in my neighborhood, it's not happening in my city, but it's so easy to just run a search on Google for predators in your zip code, and to
Yeah.
see all the red dots on the map. It's eye opening when people run it in their own area, and just watching these guys, one of them will slip, one of
Yeah.
them will slip sooner or later. It's a disease, and they can't help themselves. So that's one way to start small. Just keeping one eye on on the red flags, and it could be something that where the resources are enough. Now, what about the next phase? What about creating more of a larger organization where businesses are involved, legislators are involved, politicians are involved, something where Nashville can fight as a city, or Tennessee can fight as a state. Something where the good is exposing the bad in an open duel, in a
Mhm.
direct fight, when they're not hiding anymore, but it's trying to gather the public to take a side. When it's a little bit more organized. It's not global yet, but with the right organization and the right partnerships and the right relationships, the good becomes just as strong as the bad.
Yeah, one of the so you've got two scenarios here specifically for this that you can respond to, because the intersectionality of all the biggest problems in society come to the point of where human trafficking lives and exists. It's always hidden, it's always under the surface, but you have all these elements that come involved with it, and so we have either a drop-in center where you need police, you need food, you need the education component. So you've got your organizations out there. That's what they focus on, is education, and you've got medical. You've got all these elements together where you can bring into one location where it's a drop in on a once a week basis, or a twice a week basis, where those uh, those groups converge into one space to be able to do. This is what I do really well, but we do this all together, and you can facilitate those needs. You meet people's needs, you meet them where they're at, and then as you build relationships, you discover those points, those red flags start going off the antennae. That's what's happening in their situation, in their life. And then you also need the legal element as well. Either someone has to be arrested because they're exploiting, or they need their records cleaned because it's directly connected to. A lot of our girls, they have some type of assault with a deadly weapon. They've got some kind of paraphernalia charge of heroin or cocaine, or whatever it is. But traffickers use those scenarios to control the drugs, but they also force their girls um, to they also had to fight, or they did fight, or they're holding the weapon when such and such happens, and so they get arrested for those. Yeah, yeah, that occurs all the time. So you need to be able to clean those records
Yeah.
and convince them that they're not gonna get arrested and thrown in jail if they turn themselves in, or they go to court to get those things expunged. And so you need to be able to have a coalition of people who are able to work in those manners. Plus, you need housing and you need those recovery elements as well. And so we do a lot of that here in Nashville, and that's what we do now for those locations where we do like those drop-ins. And there's some drop-ins that are not ours. They have uh, a, a drop-in where they do feeding and they do some education. They do some other things in the community, and we just come in as a support to them, and we help them identify those who are victims, and then we help them through the process of self-identification and recovery, and then improvement. And so it doesn't have to be just yours. It can be you partner with somebody else with what they're doing, and that's always helpful. So that's one scenario. Another one is um, you go to a location, you partner with uh, a hotel, motel, or apartment complex where you engage in outreach in that area on a consistent basis, usually a weekly basis, and you build relationships with the people in that community, and through the process, you identify areas of need that they have, and then you have a partner with, you know, partner A who deals with um, low barriers to um, addiction recovery, or low barriers to housing, or they do education. They help you get your GED. You build those relationships with those people, and as they reveal to you what they need, then you
Yeah.
connect with those organizations. And so we do that on a consistent basis here. I would say on a weekly basis, we're doing that with people that we're finding on the street, and we just mobilize those other organizations into those into that program of help for those individuals.
I would think if people want to start on a local level, there is 5 or 6 people that probably want to know about sex trafficking if they have the good intentions. Probably the mayor, probably the higher judge, the probably the chief of the police, of the local police. And I guess if you approach them to see where they are, um, with that problem, if they're not actively for it, then they might be part of it. Is there
Correct. Could be.
either covering it or ignoring it or not wanting to mess with it because there's uh, powerful authorities over them protecting their job? You know,
Right.
there's a lot of teachers in Chicago who are part of the system, not because they are evil, but because they're protecting their jobs and they close their eyes and they struggle, but they kind of they play with their mind so it doesn't cause them too much pain. But they literally they study the kids they take. Usually it's single parent, weak parent who's has addictions, and nobody's going to look for that kid. And then they use the teachers are part of the process, and some of the schools and directors of schools, and it's so disgusting. But you would think if there's five people that should be caring about, maybe one, the strongest politician, the strongest judge, the chief of the police, and the mayor, those 4 or 5, and maybe the local religious leader. Those five people probably should be either, I'm all in. What do you guys need? We'll help you out. We want to be a part of this. We want to fight it with you. Or, oh, we don't want any part of this. We no comment. And you probably
Here
probably
in Nashville and in
that.
Tennessee, we have what's called a working group that responds to that. And there's somebody from every one of those offices or multiple offices that are part of those working group. And we have those meetings every quarter to identify what are our needs in our area, what do you need, what can we assist you with, and we a lot of those times in the early years we were able to actually come up with legislation that needed to be put in place to help us be able to respond, but also legally. So, for instance, when I said in order for a trafficking case to occur in the U.S., you have to have action, means, and purpose. Well, for a minor, you only have to have one of those. You have to have just two of those. So one of those doesn't matter. And so we were able to identify that for if you have a minor and you're selling them, you don't have to be the trafficker. If you're the buyer, you're going to be charged for trafficking too,
Right.
because you are facilitating the use of that child for what they're not intended to be used for.
Even if you're a
So that
broker,
occurred because of that.
if you're a broker, if you're a middleman, like the recruiter, could you get charged as well?
Absolutely, yeah.
Everybody gets the same.
Everybody gets the same
And that's fair,
if they're identified and they're arrested properly.
because, like for example, with stealing cars, there is a gap. Like if you are the broker, if you're introducing the person who buys the stolen car to the stolen car, you could say, I don't know any of these guys, and there's nothing. You don't go to jail. So there's a lot of gaps in the law for the middleman, and that's usually how they do it. They find recruiters. They find some kid at school who's going to recruit other kids at school. So as long as that middleman also gets it, that's important.
Yeah, if we can legally draw dots or lines between any of those people, anybody that's a part of the system of of exploitation and abuse, then they also will be charged for human trafficking. So those are good opportunities that have occurred out of those working groups that we have had. And again, we have not only do we have those locally in states, but we have been able to expand those to regions. And also we work with other organizations that, again, like I told you, Birmingham or Kentucky or Ohio, we work with them as well. And we very much discuss what we need in our area. And because, we, over the years, we've worked a lot with the FBI too. So, and Homeland Security. So we'll be able to express what our needs are for them. And we're able to work with each other. So that those have happened. But at the same time, you still have those, there are still within the system others who are trying to um, keep it from being identified, and
Yeah,
so those are always difficult to identify or work with. So there, today, even some of the scenarios I was sharing earlier, there are people that I don't work with locally because I don't trust them. They don't have a track record of I give you verifiable evidence of something is happening in these areas, and there's been no results of it. If people that I work with, either law enforcement or whatever, they don't prove results, I work
right.
with somebody else that has the ability. They may not have the jurisdiction, but they have the ability to get it to the right people. And
Yeah.
so we do that a lot, even here. And so I
Would
actually
you
did this last week. We did that with the situation we've got going on right now.
would you say that you feel confident that all of those five people in your area have pure intentions, or without mentioning which one, you're not 100% sure that everybody's all in with the same intentions as you.
My experience has been that everybody talks a good talk as far as they know it shouldn't exist. But when their actions don't meet their word, then I typically, we as an organization and others, we typically don't continue to work with them. Now, that's not a judgment as in they want it to continue to be perpetuated in the community. Um, but for some reason or another, if actions don't equal their words, then either if your actions equal your words, you're on the team. If your actions don't equal your words, then you're somewhat of a hindrance and a hurdle. And so we find unique, creative solutions around those scenarios.
Yeah,
So
because as the enemy, why wouldn't you want to be a part of it? Like if you're a wolf in sheepskin, so you can see what you're planning and what your next move is. So they might say, "Oh yeah, we want to help," just so they could see what your strategy is. So
and some people aren't that smart. So don't give them that kind of credit. They're not that smart. They hired a prostitute once,
yeah,
or they did this and that, or um, somebody has some type of dirt on them. You got P. Diddy and you got all these other things, Jeffrey Epstein, all those are all really high end situations and scenarios. Um, the same the same structure exists even on low levels as well. So the P. Diddy's of the world and the Jeffrey Epstein's of the world that are high level politicians, politics, government control, whatever. I see the same guy who is the controller and facilitator of human trafficking within homeless camps. Um, same same red flags, same control, same use or abuse of authority, same manipulations, same MOs. He's just doesn't have the same money that others do.
so do you follow these two cases closely, PDD and Epstein? I mean, I've kind of lost hope about the Epstein case because they apparently there's no more evidence or whatever. But I still have hope that something's going to come out of the Diddy case. Well, do you follow these cases? Because they're covering, I think they're covering the third level of people that are beyond local government and they're like the global superstars.
Yeah. So we follow them as far as when there's reports that come out. I'm not involved with any of the investigations or the process of it. None of our teams are. Again, these legal cases. But my experience in the past has been that because of the financial and reputational implication to these things, I don't know that I don't have confidence that those things will come out in the proper time. I mean, if it's this big a case, just think about John F. Kennedy.
Right.
We're how many years later from the situation when he was assassinated? I mean, it's 2025, and we're 60 years later.
Yeah.
So anybody that was involved with that, there's there's no probability of them being charged if there is,
But
criminal implications.
I mean, everybody knows it's CIA and they're not saying that it is because it is. So there's no, we already know what it is. But you're right. It took 65 years.
Yeah,
They wait until people don't care anymore.
right. That's the point. And so because there's so much financial, I mean, let's I there's never been a study on how pornography or sexual addiction or sex clubs, strip clubs or whatever, how much I would love for a study to be done to see how much the GDP is generated on this. But when you go overseas in Thailand, I can tell you that um, 60% of their tourism dollars are generated by some type of sex tourism. 3% of their whole overall, actually maybe more. 10 years ago it was 3% of their whole GDP. was generated out of sex tourism. And so you go to some locations like in Pattaya, Phuket, some places in Bangkok, the whole economic system and infrastructure was designed around the sex trade, the sex industry. I would be interested to know what that looks like in the U.S. Because I know now porn is a traded commodity now. You can buy in Wall Street, NASDAQ, you can buy stock in porn companies. And so if that's true, and it's also true that 70 to 90% of porn is produced from trafficking victims. Again, those numbers are somewhat off because we don't have proper reports on those and people giving information. So let's just say it's 70% low end, high end is 90%. If that much pornography is produced from trafficking victims, then if I can buy a stock, then what I'm doing is I'm buying stock against a person. The person is the product, and I am gambling my money on how much abuse they can take and how well they can perform. And so,
what I hear is that majority of the videos are not produced like movies, with characters and stuff, but it's real girls that have been drugged and they're videotaping and they're streaming it online.
Yeah,
So,
and even guys, I've got a friend of mine he's a male. He's a former performer, a porn producer, and he talked about how the manipulation and the pull into the industry made it so glamorous, and then once he got in, it was just complete. 7 years of his life was just complete control, complete addiction, complete abuse, and again, you're just a product. And he said it was the worst time of his life, and it's true. And Christ is how he got out. That he came to Christ, and that was it. And but he still the impact on his life from even doing that is significant. He's married. He's got some kids now. He's a really good speaker. He has a long road to overcome. And even though he's been out 10 or 12 years, the haunting of that will continue with him. And he talks about the abuse that was committed to even the girls that he worked with. Right? It's awful. It is an industry because people want it. And so back to the point of what you said was you would think these people would be interested in fighting this. Well, they are in some form, but they're not interested.
in closing, how do you share your hope with us about the third and the highest level, the global level of defeating this problem for good? What is your hope? What is your vision of how to defeat and expose this problem in its core, and um, how to win the ultimate war?
Yeah.
What do you think we need for that to end?
When part of the conversation was we talk about the dark trade of this. Yeah, it is very dark. It is very difficult. And we are fighting an invisible enemy that uses humans and humanity to control and exacerbate the issue. What we need is significant prayer, a prayer covering for people. We need people who are called to this to have the ability they focus on this specifically and they become experts in not only identifying trafficking, but being able to help people overcome the trauma, to work through the trauma. And then I would say third is partners who don't have a judgmental perspective on they're just the prostitute or they're just the drug addict who does what they have to do to get their fix. There's truth to that, but there also isn't truth to that in the sense that you don't know what they're overcoming
Yeah.
or they're still enslaved to. So they may not be enslaved to a physical person anymore, but they are enslaved um, to that culture, to the control, to the addictions that are performed. They're also enslaved to a lack of self worth. And when people aren't willing to um, sacrifice what they have. I go, go back to scripture often when Peter and John were walking through, and the guy says, do you have some gold or silver? You have something? And they're like, no, I don't have that. But what I do have is Christ. That's how people need to live in this scenario, this environment. You may not have any money. You may not have wealth and riches to donate to an organization that fights this, but you have a body and you have a mouth. And that means that you're able to express your love in presence with people, but also in word. And we need people who are willing to say, regardless of what you've gone through, regardless of what you experience, I still see worth and value in you, and I want to give you myself. And so um, that's what we need across the board. And people who they don't get involved in this because they think it's a fad or just exciting. This is I've been involved with many ministries, many missions, many kids ministry, young adult ministry, homeless ministry, um, addiction ministries. This is the most difficult ministry that I've ever been a part of because it takes the most dark elements of humanity and there's an incubation that makes it the worst part or time of your life. And so you see the worst in people, you experience the vileness in people when you're helping them through this process. And
Yeah.
again, you have to remember it's not the person, it's all the experiences
Yeah.
just flowing out of them. And you have to learn to um, you have to learn to take the good and the bad and the ugly all at the same time. And so I would say that's probably the biggest part is people who are willing to be in it. Now, there's a safe way to do it. You don't need to be just take on abuse and abuse and abuse. You need some time to get away and to recover yourself so you can be the energy to empower the other people to overcome uh, their trauma. But they still need you there to walk them through the process. So I would say that's what we need, other people to be able to be a part of that.
That is good. Well, um, Daniel, I'm gonna continue to pray for you and your organization without cease, and I would, um, I hope that you'll be able to see. Probably you won't be able to see it in your lifetime, but I hope that our children maybe will see fruition and completion of your mission, and people don't even think about trafficking other humans, that it becomes so like, protected that people don't even, evil doesn't even cross their mind to do it. Would you say the situation is getting better since the day you started, or worse?
Um, I say that we have acclimated to the difficulty of it better because this is where we live on a daily basis. And it's a twofold answer. Yes, it's gotten better, but yes, it's gotten worse. It's gotten better in the sense that we have learned how to engage and overcome some of these the difficult, the arduous journey for each survivor, because every journey for them is different, even though it may be the same route up to their Everest, right? It may be the same way. It's different for each one of them. And so we have gotten better at helping them through that process, but also the wicked system of this has gotten better of hiding it. And
Mhm.
so they have gotten better at how to recruit, how to control and maintain control of other people, but also they have gotten better at learning how to facilitate the buying and selling of humans. Um, I think they've gotten much better at it, which creates another problem of how do you help law enforcement identify and sustain uh, holistic, progressive um, identification and prosecution of those traffickers. And so I think it's both at the same time. It's gotten easier for us to be practitioners, but it's gotten harder for us also as identifiers of the evil, wicked part of it to also prosecute and convict those who are doing it. So I'd say it's both.
Yeah, the more you stay in the game, the more you expand your resources, and the more you find out, the more it's revealed to you. The bigger game you play, the more problems you see with this.
Yeah.
Well, God bless you, brother. Thank you so much for your story today and for giving us your time and sharing your mission with us and sharing your heart with us. We really appreciate the fact that you never gave up, and we really appreciate your faith. It's so inspirational to us to stay obedient to God and to stand against Satan with such an amazing character and bravery, and your relationship with Lacy, your marriage, your family is so inspirational to us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. In closing, just please share, how can people get a hold of you? How can people donate? How can people reach out to get some information on starting their own organization? And just share all the ways people can get engaged with you guys.
So people can call our office line and get in touch with me. It's 615 348 7273. It can come directly to me. They can go on our website, again, rescue1global.org. My email is daniel@rescue1global.org. Again, it's Daniel, the number one, global.org. And people can become a freedom partner. Think about these numbers. For $50 a month, people can help fight human trafficking and provide safety and security for a survivor of human trafficking. A rescue costs about $1,500. We did 3 rescues last month. I anticipate we'll do 3 or 4 again this month. And so for about $1,500, someone can help engage in what it costs to do a rescue. And a survivor in our safe house and even beyond the safe house, it's about $4,200 a month to take care of each one of those. So if you've got 7 survivors in your safe house, just do the numbers there. And so I would say that recovery is an expensive business.
Mhm.
It does take quite, and I don't have a product to sell other than here's our life and our story. And so anybody can go to the website again, rescue1global.org, and look through our website. They can become a freedom partner, and they can also send messages to me to say, hey, I really want to learn how to do this. Will you come and do a class training here? That way we can figure out what it looks like, how we can engage, and then create that collaborative partnership across the country. One thing that people don't know is, and I mentioned it earlier, you have to change geography sometimes for survivors. Actually, most of the time. So if they're live in, let's say they're in Chicago, you're in and around Chicago, you're trafficked within Chicago, you have easy accessibility to the things that are not going to help you overcome. You really have to change that geography. So getting somebody to Nashville, Tennessee, or Birmingham, Alabama, or Tampa, Florida, actually reduces recidivism and increases their recovery. And so sometimes it's difficult for people. No, I really want to keep them here and help
Yeah.
them here. It's actually better to relocate them for their benefit. And so the reason why we have partnerships with so many other people across the country is we need to be able to move them for their benefit. That way they can get the healing and the recovery and the safety that they need to become independent. And so we have to be able to partner with other people who are willing to what's better for them, not what's necessarily better for us. And so again, my numbers are on there. Um, Contact me anytime. And again, I'm so grateful for your partnership and your support over the years and moving forward. And a live-a-thon would be great to do again.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do it. And I'm going to talk to some people that I feel would be on board and are just as passionate as you are, but also feel like they're not doing enough. So that would be a great way for them to participate. Anybody using their own gifts from God, for the same
Absolutely.
mission. Unity without uniformity.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel, love you, brother. Say hi
Love you too.
to Lacy, and God bless you.